What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. It is a very happy Monday. We are rocking our blue Die Hard stimulus check t-shirt, the one that we have to earn with blood, sweat, and tears, snapping a 3-event skid with a big fat +8 unit win. Let me just... That's what I'm talking about! Much needed comeback, baby. I'm so amped up for this fight card. Now I gotta pick up all these dang bills. I made a mess. So what I have got for you is a very special guest this week. We had MMA Lock of the Night, my guy Manpreet, scheduled to come on the show, but unfortunately there were some haters. They wouldn't let Alfie on the plane. So he's taking a road trip unexpectedly, and we got a ringer filling in for us. Your favorite, my favorite, MMA stat daddy, none other than Uncle Weezy himself. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic, Weezy. It is amazing what one winning night can do for a man's confidence. You know as well as I do, sit in front of these damn cameras, reading the comments, hearing the haters chipping away all the messages and stuff. If you've got a bad couple weeks and you just hear about it on repeat, boy, does it get old sometimes, Weezy. It is tough to face the music when you're on that kind of a skid.
Yeah, and that's the hardest part about what we do is because, you do all the research, you pick all your spots, you look at the lines, and then you find you put those bets in, and then it's in somebody else's hands. And then sometimes Saul D'Amato's there, and he just, he screws you over, or, and I mean, like, there could be reffing issues. Somebody could slip on a banana peel. It just never quite works out the way you think it will. But when we put in that research, when we do our work, when we watch the tape, when we listen to our contemporaries, that's when we get the best bets in. That's when we stack cash tickets like flapjacks, and that's when we make these bookies scared.
Hell yeah, Weezy. I love it, man. It's funny you mentioned it's in someone else's hand. The thing that always comes to mind when we talk about like sketchy results and things like that for me, people are all ready to pull the trigger on like a bad split decision that went the wrong way or something like that. The one that gets it for me was when Ngannou got the first ever head kick eye poke, when the toe got her in the eye and they called it a TKO finish. Ever since then, they've been on the lookout for it. There have been a couple of, the ref steps in, stops it, let the fighter recover just like a finger. But the first time, they didn't know what the fuck to do. They called it a TKO.
That is wild. I had forgotten about that. It has been so long since I thought about that. That just goes to show you, man, this sport, every once in a while, man, things are going to go absolutely off the rails. It's going to start out pretty good, and then it's going to fall apart like a Chinese motorcycle, like 2 or 3 fights in, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And it can happen to the absolute best of us, but it's not how you start, man. It's how you finish. So we got to put in the work every damn week, and that's what we're about to do for you guys here on Pub Sports Radio tonight.
I love it, Weezy. And that's why this sport is by far the best one out there, because you just can't script the stuff that keeps happening here, man. I'm going to welcome the chat in here real quick. We got Mushroom, we got F. Gorilla, we got the Grateful Dude, I Love Clinty, baby, Alex Ramirez, Sean V, Dr. Elijah True, Raw Torque. We've got Steven Wiz, man. We got the OGs all starting to roll in here. Lou in the house, XX in here. I'm getting all caught up here. It's a lot of the repeat names going at it, having some fun talking to each other at the top. Gaming Wolf, our guy, DFS by the numbers, FTO Combat, Matthew Campbell. Welcome in, everybody. Now there's too many names. All right, here we go. F. Gorilla with the $10 dono to kick the fight night off. Thank you so much, my friend. Always appreciated helping support us here at Pub Sports Radio, keeping the lights on. We absolutely love it. All right, so if you guys know, if you don't know, you should already know. This is Pub Sports Radio. Make sure you smash that like button for us here. The show odds are presented to you by Superbook Sports. And as a little bit of a change up to start things off, a little something fun, a little something different, something that they are offering over at Superbook Sports, Weezy, is odds for futures in MMA. Something that I personally have not seen very many people do. And I just thought we'd kind of riff here on what they've got available to us because it's something that I'm considering making a couple moves on. Other major sports, baseball, basketball, football, even college football and basketball, you can pick the team for the next year to win the championship. Not something I have any experience doing in MMA. So let's talk about it, man. They've got lightweight champion as of January 1st, 2023. I'm sorry, light heavyweight is the first one we've got to talk about. Jiří Procházka is even money, 1-1. So, the whole world thinks Jiří is just going to, KO Glover Teixeira, take the strap, call it a day. But Glover's not even the number 2 guy. Alexander Rakic is the guy who's in number 2 at plus 425. And then you get some more interesting options a little down the line. Magomed Ankalaev at 7-1. Jan is at 10-1. Anthony Smith, 25-1. Jamal Hill, 50-1. John Jones is on the list. Don't bother. He's a heavyweight now. Dominic Reyes at 100-1. Did any of these pique your interest here, Weezy? Would you be considering taking a bet on any of these future spots?
Dude, how about the current champion being at 4.5-1? All this guy has to do is get the flu and not fight for the next 8 months and you cash.
Right.
Come on, man. That's what, something has to happen. And that's the great thing is that, somebody could get food poisoning. The day before the fight, they have to put the fight off for 3 months because of, future obligations and stuff like that. So when you're getting the current champion, and by the way, everybody's blown away by Jiří Procházka, but when you watch the regional scene footage on this guy, Teixeira is an absolute nightmare for him. The guy does not have good takedown defense. He doesn't have fantastic Brazilian jiu-jitsu from his back. So I could see Glover Teixeira going in there, taking this guy down. He's very smart. This is a 40-ish-year-old man. He's not looking to change the way he fights. Glover's going to go in there and take this dude down, and I think he can win minutes and bank rounds with that style against Jiří. And to get 4.5-1, and all he has to do is not lose in the next 8 months, that is very interesting to me.
I have the exact same thoughts, Weezy, and I've got the same thought on a different bracket that we'll talk about here just a minute. But the one that jumps out to me, honestly, is Jamal Hill at 50-1. The only reason I'm not already piling on Jamal Hill at 50-1 is because I think he's one fight away. And like you mentioned, if Glover were to get sick, if that fight were to get delayed, I'm not sure Hill will get a crack at the title in 2022. If I could get guaranteed that he gets one fight and then a shot at the title before the end of the year, I'd be piling in on Jamal Hill at 50-1. I think that's crazy, but we only have, like you said, we've got about 8 months for the rest of the year to wrap up. So Jamal Hill would be my sleeper. I think there's value on Glover Teixeira. Moving on to middleweight, same idea, January 1st, 2023. Izzy is a gigantic favorite here, man. Do any of these underdogs even stand a chance? Because I kind of feel like Izzy reigns supreme still for at least the next year.
How about Khamzat at 40-1? Because I could see an Israel Adesanya opponent backing out and Khamzat getting on a bike and biking 300 miles in less than 3 hours to get the title shot. I think that guy would be filling in to fight Ngannou if you gave him the damn chance. If you're hey, can you weigh in at 206 so that we can legally sanction this fight? I think Khamzat is that guy. So I think it's funny that he's even listed there in the middleweights, but don't doubt that dude. At 40-1, you put $1 on it, put 250 and you can win 100, So, but yeah, it's probably going to be Adesanya. Pereira's not getting to a title shot by the end of this year.
That'd be the only one I'd be interested in, Weezy. If Pereira's the only one I think I would put money on.
Yeah, because we know that he's beaten him before, and we know that Adesanya all of a sudden isn't going to turn into a wrestler. Yeah. So that would be an interesting fight. But does Adesanya even have an opponent?
The word is he's supposed to fight Jared Cannonier. I don't know that we have official signed bout agreements though, and this is another one where I think if he gets past Jared, the next fight probably isn't until 2023. So
probably.
Unless there's a pullout, unless there's a late notice opponent swap, I don't think Pereira's getting the shot here this year. So same situation there for me, man. I'd be riding with the chalk. For lightweight, Islam Makhachev, slight favorite, -125. Man, I talked about it every single time it happens. Making the current seeded champion an underdog is disrespectful, and we proved that on Saturday with Aljo retaining his title. Charlie O at plus 270 to be the champ by the end of the year, man. That's, like I said, that just seems like disrespect. That'd be a button number that I'm interested in.
People think that, Charles probably doesn't belong to be there. I think a lot of people just think he's kind of just keeping it warm for Islam at this point. But my God, Charles Oliveira's been around, dude. And when you go to the ground with that guy, it's just dude, I think Oliveira is the better striker for sure. And I just think on the ground, Oliveira is so dangerous. I mean, you got to watch out for your leg. He could wrap up a leg lock. Anything from his back he can do. It's very interesting, but I probably wouldn't be touching that because, at the end of the day, I don't know if I want to be in that man Islam Makhachev's way.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Absolutely. All right, so we'll get through these real quick here. Flyweight champ Davison Figueiredo, even money. Brandon Moreno is 5-2. Kai France at 5-1. Askarov 14-1. I mean, if you ask me, they need to go with the trilogy. Brandon Moreno needs to be the guy that gets the next crack at it. And honestly, whoever wins that rubber match is going to be your champ at the end of the year. I know Figgy is trying to duck Moreno and get Kai France. Yeah. I don't think it's happening. So this is another one where, he's talked about laying off for injuries and things like that. It's got to be one of the top two. Davison either doesn't fight for the rest of the year and ends up retaining champion status by the end of 2022, or he fights Moreno and you've got maybe a little bit of value, but you might as well bet that fight straight instead of picking the champ at the end of the year, I guess, because the number's not really juicy enough to have me super interested.
Yeah, because it's pretty much a three-man race here, and if Moreno or Figueiredo drops out because they get injured or something like that, Kai France is going to step in and then have a chance, but you got to wait for an injury first, it would seem like it. Exactly. I don't think they're going to let Davison, dodge Brandon here.
Man, I agree. And then for the women's, I mean, obviously you've got the flyweight champion, Valentina Shevchenko is a gigantic minus 800 to be champion at the end of 2023. So tough to argue that. Talia Santos, 10-1 to be champ. I mean, again, that's another bet it straight type of situation. Nobody else really makes sense because I think that's the only fight we'll get before the end of the year. But I want to talk about the women's bantamweight division because I think Juliana Pena is being disrespected here, Weezy. I mean, you're getting just over 5-1 on the current seeded champion, someone who not only beat but finished Amanda Nunes to remain champ by the end of the year. I don't think Nunes is justified being minus 230 and getting that kind of a ridiculous number on Juliana Pena here. That's the one that, honestly, I'm legitimately interested in placing a future bet on. What about you?
That jumped off the page to me because there's a possibility and a definite possibility that Amanda Nunes never weighs in at 135 pounds again in her life.
Yes.
I mean, look, she's done it all. She's largely still considered to be the GOAT. Why should she have to cut down to 135? The one thing that I said going into that Pena fight was I said, look, Pena's not winning this fight. But I said, here's the thing. We hadn't seen Nunes weigh in at 135 pounds in over 2 years at the point that she took that Pena fight. And I said, that could be something here, is that she never, since she hasn't weighed in at 135 in 2 years, maybe she's not fit to fight there right now. And so I'm not even sure Amanda Nunes is going to come back and say, yeah, I want this rematch. Is it even booked yet?
They're doing the Ultimate Fighter season with the two of them as coaches. So you got to think the fight is soon to follow after. I think that's part of why they did the show, was so that Nunes could get her whole thing sorted out and stuff like that. She said she had some, health concerns that she needed to resolve. The cardio thing popped back up again. Man, I'm not concerned. I'm not sold that that's not all smoke and mirrors. We've seen great legends of the sport. Anderson Silva, eventually Father Time gets you. He's undefeated. Father Time is the only undefeated fighter in mixed martial arts, man. And I think that there's a solid chance Amanda Nunes doesn't get her strap back from Juliana Pena. So yeah, I'm glad we're kind of thinking the same way here. I legitimately might add that, and I might even make it like an official podcast bet to put a unit or two on Juliana Pena to hold the belt at the end of the year, because I think that's an absolute steal at that number.
I think it's an absolute steal at that number as well. That is a very sharp spot.
I love it, man. Glad we're on the same page. Hey, that was fun. Anybody, just being a fight fan and talking about some different betting angles and stuff like that, I hope you all enjoyed that. Take a look over at Superbook Sports, see what they've got to offer everybody. But we have got, a full-ass fight card to get to, Uncle Weezy. Let's bust right on into this bad boy. Everybody do me a favor and just smash the shit out of that like button for me. Let's go. First fight of the night, Vicente Luque taking on Belal Muhammad. I say first fight of the night, first fight we're going to talk about. The main event of the evening. It's funny, Weezy. Everybody absolutely hated when I shifted from doing the beginning of the card and like ramping up to the main event. They wanted me to go back to, the old way. So I've been kind of flip-flopping, and honestly, I got the thing backwards on this fight card. So I'm just going to piss everybody off by starting at the top of the card because I got my notes in the wrong order. Let's talk Vicente Luque taking on Belal Muhammad, Weezy. I am so beyond pumped for this fight. I mean, it's a rematch from 2016. And everybody who watches this show knows I got the Don't Fade Vicente Luque tattoo, which, by the way, is just a Photoshop for anybody wondering. Man, this guy has cost me so much money. Every time I look at Vicente Luque, he's one of those guys that I go, you know what? He's an incredible fighter, but he's just a brawler. Like, he's a straight-up brawler, man. He wants to go toe-to-toe with you. He wants to go power for power. He will engage you in the grappling if you think you're better than him there, and he'll submit you. Like, I can't stand fighters that do that from a betting perspective, because he never takes the path of least resistance. He never fights to the optimal game plan, but he just freaking beats everybody. So I honestly, Weezy, when I was doing my tape study for this one, I went back, obviously, and watched his last couple fights, and I am still absolutely floored that Mike Chiesa gave up the way he did in round one. Like, the way he had the easiest takedown of all time, had already cracked Luque one, and was on his back, and then ends up in a darce in like a matter of seconds, and the fight's over. I was blown away at that result over again, like I got punched in the gut for the first time with that ticket in my pocket. I can't get Vicente Luque right, man. I just can't seem to, but that's also because I've been, fading him more than betting on him. We got a real competitive line here. Again, odds are brought to you guys by Superbook. Minus 170 favorites. Vicente Luque plus 150 Belal Muhammad. I don't know what to do here. I really don't know what to do here, Weezy, because Belal Muhammad has been on some kind of a run lately. His wrestling has looked sharp. His boxing has looked sharp. If you don't count, the bad first round against Leon Edwards, who is the number one contender in the division, he hasn't looked bad against anybody he's fought in the last, 5 years. Like, he's a legit contender, and getting a guy like that at plus 150 is just sweet. Cashing on him against Wonderboy at plus 200 was one of the best bets I've had in the last year. I mean, I can make legitimate arguments for both of these guys. How the hell are we supposed to bet this main event, Weezy?
Dude, it's hard. So you're going to have to pick a side, because like if you're looking for cappers, especially this capper right here to tell you which one of these guys is going to win this fight, I can't tell you that. Well, here's what I can tell you, though. Vicente Luque is a brawler, right? He trusts his chin. He's got a ton of power. 10 knockdowns in 17 UFC fights. And Belal Muhammad has been knocked down 6 times in 15 UFC fights. So obviously Luque's got a path here to land a big shot on Belal, finish this one inside the distance. Vicente Luque is the only guy to finish Belal Muhammad in 24 of Belal Muhammad's professional fights. So both of these guys are very durable. And then you've got Muhammad, right? And Muhammad is a guy who in the UFC has 11 wins and 9 of them are by decision. So what does that tell us, Clint? It tells us that this guy knows how to win minutes, right? Mm-hmm. And how do you win minutes, right? Do you win minutes by being a fucking wild man and just throwing bombs and staying in somebody's face and fighting your opponent's best win condition and, doing things that you shouldn't do. No, you win minutes by fighting smart. First and foremost, you have to fight smart. You have to be fighting your fight, and you have to simultaneously be fighting the fight that your opponent hates to fight. Belal Muhammad's a master at doing that. Look, both of these guys have fought Stephen Thompson. Belal Muhammad beat Stephen Thompson, and Vicente Luque lost to Stephen Thompson. The reason Luque didn't beat Stephen Thompson is Luque shot 0 takedowns. Luque is the kind of guy who carries his balls around in a wheelbarrow, right? And he says, I don't even know how they fit in those shorts of his, right? But he gets them in there. And he says, I don't care how good you think you are. I'm going to stay in your face. My chin is tougher than yours. I hit harder than you, and I want this more than you. So we've got this clash of styles. You got the guy with the big balls who will fight his opponent's fight and will come out on the other side winning almost every damn time. And then you got the guy who's got the law degree from U of I, who fights incredibly smart, who fights to his strengths and to his opponent's weaknesses. And let me tell you something. There have been 3 fights in Vicente Luque's 17 UFC fights where his opponents have tried to shoot more than 2 takedowns. In those fights, Vicente Luque is 1-2. The win was over Nico Price, and it was the second fight where they had that war, and Nico Price won the first 2 rounds and was winning the third, and then Luque landed that big shot and finished him. So Belal Muhammad is going to fight the kind of fight that is going to allow him to have a better chance to win than what the odds are telling you right now. And Belal Muhammad by decision or Vicente Luque inside the distance are absolutely the 2 most probable outcomes to this fight.
I completely agree with you, man. The problem is figuring out which one is the best value side there. Because, we got a 5-round fight. I feel like that's the kind of fight, man. I've never seen Vicente Luque tired. I don't have any doubt that this man can carry his power into the 4th and the 5th round. Like, even if Belal comes out and does everything perfect and does everything right, grinds him up against the fence for 20 minutes, Luque can still crack him at the 21st minute of the fight and end this thing. It's an insurance plan. Like, I don't know how to get around the fact that Vicente Luque probably wins this fight. But at the same time, one of the things I've noticed gambling, Wheezy, is whenever you get a fight like this where it's lined super closely and everybody's on the same side, something's up.
Yeah.
Like, all of Twitter is on Vicente Luque this week. All of us. And it's only minus 170. That means the bookies know that this line is much closer than that. They think this fight is going to be very competitive and very close, or there's smarter people out there with bigger pockets than all of us that are keeping this line close. And that terrifies me to go against that kind of an angle. I think that Belal is the type of guy that you bet on at plus money. If you've done that his entire career, he just keeps on cashing for you, shutting everybody up, beating the haters. But I cannot fade Vicente Luque. I've done it too many times, Wheezy. I've lost too much money. I don't think I can do it.
I think I'm going to be the guy that fades him this week, but God, not with any confidence. I'm not talking any shit. That is for sure. It is going to be like, look, I'm going to bet Belal Muhammad by decision. Here are the reasons why I'm doing that. And then I'm probably not even going to be able to watch the damn fight because every time Luque throws a punch, I'm going to be thinking that he's going to finish this guy because that's Luque, and yeah, you don't ever want to be confident betting against either one of these guys. Exactly. They are both winners.
For sure. This is a real contenders matchup, man. And I can't wait to see whoever gets through this thing challenged for a title eventually. Or I don't know if they're going to have to deal with Hamzat first or what the deal is, but this is fun, man. 170 is alive and kicking right now, in my opinion.
It absolutely is, man. And this is a great main event. It's not the best card of the year, but this is a great stylistic matchup. And whichever one of these guys takes the next step is probably going to be looking at a title shot very soon.
For sure, man. For sure. I love it. I'm going to pick Vicente Luque. No bet for me at this point. I want to look at the props when they come out. I want to see the totals. I think the total might be a sneaky way to play this one. So I'll take a look at that when it comes out, and we'll circle back a little later in the week. Next fight up, we've got your co-main event, which is basically a miniature version of Dana White's Contender Series. Borralho's taking on Gadzhi. I didn't practice this one. Omargadzhiev. Oh, man, Wheezy. I know better than this. Anytime there's a Russian fighter on the show, I rehearse the name, go back and watch their last couple fights, listen to John Anik, listen to all the guys that get the audio clips and know how to say the names. Totally forgot to do that for this one. So apologies, everybody, for butchering this one. But we've got a very competitive co-main event line here, man. We've got Gadzhi as a minus 140 favorite. Caio is Ciaro, can't remember. Plus 120 is the line there on that one. And you guys know my angle. I like the Dana White Contender Series fade. When these guys look good on the Contender Series and they make that first step into the octagon against decent level of competition, I like to bet against them. I mean, it went 0-2 this past weekend on the event, but both those fights were extremely close and very competitive. I mean, Mickey Gall was looking like he was starting to take over a little bit right before he got popped. So, you know, there's something to be said for getting that plus money on those spots. But both these guys are coming from the Contender Series, Wheezy. I can't fade either one because it's both of their debuts. Really fun fight, man. Borralho is he's got that sideways karate style fighting. He's got he's one of these guys that was on the Contender Series twice. The first time he played it a little too safe. The fight was a little too grindy, so Dana brought him back and said, "Show me something, kid." Comes out and flatlines his opponent early to go ahead and get the UFC contract. Good counter striking. He can move backwards and still hit with serious power. He's got good hips. One thing I noticed, though, is that he can give up cage control time. He's got a 4-inch reach advantage in this spot, but, man, Gadzhi is your classic undefeated Russian prospect. This guy just comes out and mauls people. He's got that striking that's designed to survive and be defensive up until the point he decides to level change. And then once you're on your back, you're at his mercy. He's got serious top pressure. You're not getting out from underneath him if he gets up on top of you. He's aggressive with the ground and pound and his submissions. He's willing to fall back on ankle locks. I mean, he won his UFC contract fight via knee bar. Like, this guy is going to be a monster, in my opinion. He's got the right style for it. He's going to give some problems. And honestly, man, I kind of got to side with the favorite here. I know a lot of people are, really liking Paulo Costa's son in this spot, but I actually think this is a spot where he probably gets put on his back. And if he doesn't get put on his back, he can just get his back up against the fence. And if he gets his back on the fence, that takes away that speed, that explosiveness, that movement. I can absolutely see him just getting grinded away here in this spot. I'm very tempted to lay the chalk on the minus 140 favorite. What about you, Weezy?
So this is a fascinating fight. When you watch the regional scene tape on both of these guys, you get pissed off that they're fighting each other, man. I mean, like, these guys are good. These guys are very good. And I love fighters that can go out there and win minutes with their wrestling. And then their striking is serviceable enough to win minutes up there as well. And both of these guys are definitely that. I would give the edge on the feet to Borralho because I think he's got more power. Omargadzhiev, he wrestles a lot. And once he gets people down, he's always working to get to that crucifix position. And he's very good at getting it there and then keeping it there and even potentially finishing it from there. He's a guy that thrives off of ground control. And what does Borralho do? He also thrives off of ground control, and his wrestling is very good. I mean, I kind of feel like whoever is shooting first in each one of these rounds is probably going to win the round. Both of these guys are so good on the ground. I like Borralho's striking a little bit better. I like Omargadzhiev's wrestling a little bit better. But in this particular fight, I think I would just have to take whichever one of these guys is plus money because I think they're that evenly matched. Okay. Both of these guys have UFC skill sets already. You know, like when you saw Jailton Almeida come in and he beat that Russian, he beat that Nasruddinov guy that it was something like 13-0 in ACA and had been fighting these monsters. And when you watch the tape that was available on Jailton, you're like, holy shit, dude, this guy's huge. He's strong. He wrestles. And once he gets people down, he's mean. And he's not giving up possession. He's not getting swept. Well, both of these guys are doing that. Omargadzhiev is doing that. Borralho is doing that. These guys are both ready. They're both ready right now. I think some people are saying they don't know why this is the co-main event. Dude, these guys are good. And I would just say I'm taking Caio Borralho simply because he's plus money, because in my opinion, this is just flip a coin.
I hear you, Easy, and that I think that's a fair argument. I really do. I just the Russians, man, I can't get around that nonstop grind. You know what I mean? I think when it gets hairy after it's 1-1 going into the third, I kind of trust the Russian grinder to be the one that pulls it out. So I'm kind of leaning that way. Again, not sure I'm going to end up pulling the trigger on this one. If I do, it'll probably be a small bet. But yeah, I'm going to side on the other side on this one. But this should be an awesome, fun co-main event. Steven bringing out the old fireball and popcorn. Maybe not a bad call.
Maybe for betting, but this is a great fight. This is definitely not a shit or break fight. You're watching this fight, man. These guys are going to go at it. It's going to be awesome, dude. And if you like neck tattoos, you cannot miss this fight, dude. You just can't. Don't ever miss this fight if neck tattoos is, if you're an enthusiast of that kind of thing, man, because Caio brings a game.
Absolutely. All right, man. Moving right along, we have got Andre Fialho taking on Miguel Baeza in a spot, Wheezy, that really feels to me like the UFC is trying to figure out who the actual prospect is. Miguel Baeza was a kid that came to us, actually, I think from the Contender Series some time ago, and he's kind of been a hot prospect. Everyone expected real big things from him, and all of a sudden he's on a 2-fight skid with his last loss coming by way of knockout to my guy, man. And it's a bad spot to be in. Now they're matching him up with a young kid that took his UFC debut on short notice against a monster in Alex Bahia. Man, that's a tough order. I watched that Andre Fialho fight, and I know a lot of people may recall, I actually took a flyer on Andre Fialho because I felt like that line was way too wide. He just couldn't keep up. And on short notice, the gas tank was an issue. That became apparent. But this kid is in the right place, Wheezy. He is training at one of the top gyms that you could ask for from a young prospect here. Let me see. I'm sorry. My notes are all out of order. He's over at Sanford MMA, and I loved everything I see about him. He's got big power. He hunts his opponents down. He's got a solid jab, long power punches, good strong hips, and he's durable, Wheezy. That's the big thing with Fialho, is he can take an absolute punch. I want to see what this kid can do on a full camp. I'm very excited to watch him after getting a full preparation, a real weight cut, not the whiplash-style UFC debut that he made. Yeah. Baeza, I've always talked about the fact that this guy is hittable. I've always looked for opportunities to fade his chin. And, with my guy Chaos Williams, that was the perfect spot to do it. Now, Chaos was kind of losing that fight up until the point that he got dinged. But, boy, did he come through in a big way there in that spot. When he connected, it was over, man. I think Baeza's chin has always been a liability. And after that kind of a knockout, I would expect it to be even more so of a liability. He's got an underrated ground game. He can maybe go back to that a little bit. But Fialho's, like I said, he's big, physical, strong dude, good hips. I've got a hard time seeing him getting taken down there. This is a spot where, once again, surprise, surprise, everybody, I'm looking at the dog. I think Fialho is live here. He's a plus 155 dog. Baeza currently a minus 175 favorite. And I think he might get knocked out again, Weezy.
Yeah, so Fialho is an interesting guy. When I watched the regional scene footage on him before the Pereira fight, I was like, oh my God, here's a guy who's looking for one big shot with no gas tank. No gas tank, dude. I mean, Fialho, I've never seen anybody, and this is on a full camp. I'm not talking about the Pereira fight. I'm talking about a couple of these fights on the regional scene. You see with Fialho, the gas tank is not there. And then he goes in against Pereira, and he's losing, but damn if he doesn't gut it out. Damn if he doesn't fight while exhausted. And while exhausted, he's landing big shots and actually gets Pereira a couple times where it had me worried because I had Pereira in a lot of DraftKings lineups and stuff. He's good. And then I was surprised to see that he's only 28 years old. That's where you really kind of say to yourself, shit, man, this guy could figure out the conditioning. And if he does that, and he's training at a place like Sanford right now where, I'm sure they're going to figure that out because this guy, when you got your hands on your hips after one round and you haven't grappled at all, that's the kind of thing that, your coaches are going to notice and they're going to work on. And he needs to work on that because the takedown defense isn't bad. The Brazilian jiu-jitsu isn't bad. The clinch game is fucking good. The Muay Thai is good. He's got power and he's young. He's getting better. And then you look, wow, 19 pro fights,
Experience.
Some in PFL. He's fought, he's got wins over Vic and over Sekulic, UFC veterans. He's fought some dudes.
He went the distance with my guy, Chris Curtis, Wheezy.
Yep.
UFC regulars are getting dropped like flies against Action Man. So the fact that he was able to take that 15-minute beating, that says something to me. His durability is intact.
Yep. And there's definitely something to this kid. And then Baeza's 1 year older than him, 2 inches taller. They got the same reach. But, Baeza's got UFC level power now. We're talking about a guy with 5 knockdowns in 6 fights. A guy who's landing a knockdown on 1.62% of the significant strikes that he's landing. He's averaging over a knockdown per 15 minutes, 3 finishes and 4 wins. So you got a guy who's been doing it at this level. And when we talk about the chin of Baeza, who's testing the chin? Santiago Ponzinibbio, Chaos Williams. I mean, these are guys, that are high-level UFC competition right now. So I am leaning Baeza here. I worry about Fialho's conditioning still, and I believe that Baeza might be the more powerful striker. I know that Fialho brings a lot of power, and like some of the shots that he's turned people's lights off with, you grimace. It was like Josh Friend's tape last week when you saw a couple of those knockdowns. You're like, oh my God, that guy's dead. And like when Fialho hit that dude with that elbow in PFL and he just went down, like, oh, he's dead. Okay, let's get the stretcher out.
Bring in the stretcher.
My God, let's hope he doesn't bleed all over the canvas. So really looking forward to this one. I'm leaning Baeza just because I think this is a step up for Fialho, but man, he showed out pretty good against Pereira, who's a very tough UFC level opponent. So I don't think I'm going to be putting any money on this one, but fight finishes inside the distance might be a decent way to play this one if you want to get either way, because Fialho can finish Baeza and Baeza can certainly finish Fialho as he's been knocked out in 2 of his 4 pro losses.
I hear you. And DJ caught me sleeping here. You're correct. I apologize. Chris Curtis actually TKO'd him in the 3rd round. So it took him to the 3rd to get it done, but Curtis did what Curtis does there. So I apologize for misquoting that one. He does have the TKO loss there to Curtis. Well, some disagreement here between Wheezy and myself on this one. It's going to be a banger of a fight, man. It'll be real interesting to see what kind of game plan Baeza brings to the table. Honestly, you got to expect him to be a little gun-shy after getting rocked and knocked out the way he did in his last fight. Maybe a slower start to the fight, kind of a pace. But, man, we're back in the apex. We're back in the small cage. So I think there's something to be said for that, favoring the power striker Fialho. I think that if Baeza wants to take it to the ground, then, yeah, sure, we can count him as a grappler, and maybe it helps him get it to the floor a little bit more. But I just don't think he's going to have anywhere to go. Someone like Baeza, I think, needs to have room to move, the footwork, stay on the outside, avoid the power. And in that small cage, you just can't do that as much. So I do think we're going to end up in some kind of a gunfight here.
Oh, it's gonna be a war, and I mean, there's a damn good reason why this fight is on the main card. Now, the next fight that's on the main card, I don't know if there's a damn good reason or even a reason for it, but let's talk about it anyway.
Yeah, you know what? We're going to, Easy, but real quick, we got 200 live viewers. Thank you all so much for joining us here on Pub Sports Radio. We really appreciate you spending your Monday night with us. And real quick, guys, I am super excited because we actually have a new deal for you here at Pub Sports Radio. We got a discount code for you, and we got to make a commercial for it. So we're going to go ahead and roll that here real quick for everybody. The debut of this bad boy. I can't wait. Let me know what you think.
What's going on, sports gamblers? I don't need to tell you that sometimes when you're betting on sports, making a good bet takes giant balls. But every once in a while, there's a downside to having giant
cojones.
That's right. Anytime you're exercising, anytime you're working out, sometimes it gets a little uncomfortable. There's some extra chafing. One of them decides to stick to your leg, and that can be a problem. Sometimes you need a day off after a tough run on the treadmill because your legs are raw from rubbing together because of your gigantic
balls.
Well, let me tell you, Stageman Underwear has you covered. Stageman Underwear was designed with your giant
Golden Globes
specifically in mind. This patented design comes with a special pouch exactly for your
dangler
and
balloons,
so that they do not chafe while you're on the treadmill, so they do not get too moist on a hot and humid desert day. I promise you, as somebody who has personally tested these exact Stageman underwear, that once you put these things on and you have a go on the workout, you wrestle on the mat if you're into jiu-jitsu, you will never go back to another pair of regular underwear ever. The difference made by Stageman, the comfort level that I enjoyed, is something nothing short of magical.
Ball security is important in football and basketball. Why should it be any different for you? Take care of that treasure trunk and that care package and give it the respect it deserves.
When you check out, use promo code PUB for a 10% discount and give your balls the best pair of underwear, the most level of comfort they have ever enjoyed.
So
That's how you do a promo right there, Clint.
that's how you cut a promo, Wheezy. No, seriously, guys. Like I was not lying. I tried those things out. They're fucking good, Wheezy. I'm trying to, get rid of this dad bod, get into a little bit better shape. And seriously, like the chafing thing, that's a real issue. So if you guys want to avoid that, check out stageman.com for sure. No joke, even though the commercial was hilarious. All right. We will talk about that next fight, Wheezy. And I'm happy I've got one of the orderlies here with me today. Mayra Bueno Silva taking on Yanan Wu. And what a absolute dumpster fire, Wheezy. What a dumpster fire this is. Wu is a fighter who, there's a lot of UFC fighters, Wheezy, that we go, and maybe the regional scene is not what you'd want it to be, right? Like you can only fight who you get put in front of you. So we can't knock a fighter for making it to the UFC level, having bad opponents and things like that. She's continued fighting bad opponents. She got to the UFC, man. Like, Wu is such a fraud, and she's 1-3 in the UFC. She's the biggest can crusher I think I've ever seen. Now, she hasn't fought in a year, so maybe we can expect some improvements from her. But she walks forward, she swings wildly, she's sloppy, she's hittable, she's slow to reload. If you've got a speed advantage on her, you're absolutely going to abuse her in the striking realm. But Mayra Bueno, she is maybe incredibly skilled. Maybe. I say that maybe because she has no IQ. Like, Wheezy, if she would follow a game plan, if she would fight to her strengths, she could be a title contender. But dear God, like her best attribute is on the ground. She can submit anybody, but she's never shot a takedown in the UFC. She wants to rumble. She just wants to get in there and brawl, and she relies on her opponent shooting for a takedown for her before she actually does anything. I can't get over that. She's a minus 450 favorite is Mayra Bueno Silva in this spot. And considering what I just said about Yanan Wu, I get it because Wu is bad. Yeah. But how the hell do you lay minus 450 on Silva, Wheezy? What the heck? What do we do?
So, I just, this is one of my things that I'm worrying about now as a gambler. You find those spots that you don't thrive in, and you start to tell yourself, I've got to stop being in those spots. I got to stop putting myself in those spots. Juiced women's MMA favorites is something I am just absolutely trying to stay away from. And look, Wu Yanan is terrible. And like you say, I mean, she has fought the worst competition outside of the fights. So the women who have beaten Wu Yanan, if you take out their victory over Wu Yanan out of their record, The 3 women who have beat her in the UFC have a combined UFC record of 1 win and 8 losses. Those are the girls who are beating Wu Yanan. She has lost to Gina Mazzani, who is 2-5. Mizuki Inoue, who has only 1 win, and that was against Wu Yanan, and against Jocelyn Edwards, 1-3. Her only win against who? Wu Yanan. So, yeah, she's not good. But then, like as a stats guy, you look at Mayra Bueno Silva, her numbers are like looking at a dumpster that's on fire, 0 takedown attempts in 6 fights, but she's a grappler, okay? On the feet, she lands 3.82 strikes and absorbs 5.22. She throws 7.19 strikes, and her opponents throw 11.64. So she throws less than her opponents. She lands less than her opponents. She's less accurate than her opponents. And you'd say, well, she's a better grappler, but she ain't going to try to get the fight into the grappling. And when you box her face off, she sits there like she's Carlos Felipe with her arms wide open saying, bring it on. And it's like, no, you're supposed to hit the woman across from you, not encourage them to hit you. She just doesn't seem to understand what fighting is all about. I don't know. There's no process to her game. So if you're laying minus 450 on a fighter that has no process to her game, then you have no process to your gambling game. And your Uncle Weezy is going to be calling 1-800-GAMBLER on you, and the orderly is going to show up. They're going to inject you with something, and you're going to wake up in a padded room somewhere. And we're not going to even tell you why. It's just so you'll know, because you were betting like a dumbass. That's why you're going to wind up there.
Weezy, I love it. I love it. This is the fireball and popcorn fight from a betting perspective again, man. Just do not touch this thing because, dear God, okay, so Mayra should just roll. She should absolutely run through Wu in this spot. If you want to bet an under, if you want to bet her inside the distance, if you're getting a half-decent number, go for it, I guess. But laying minus 450 on someone like Silva, who does what she does and fights the way that she fights, if there was going to be a bed shitter on this card, it could absolutely be her because she could just let this fight slip away. It's that kind of a spot. I want nothing to do with it. I'll pick Silva to win, Weezy, but I ain't touching this thing from a betting perspective.
Yeah, man, me neither. Believe me, part of me wants to put a little money on Wu Yanan. I think in every situation like this, if you just threw an eighth of a unit or a quarter of a unit on it, like that women's favorite, that's minus 500. But, there's 2 types of minus 500 favorites, Clint, right? There's the Islam Makhachev minus 500 favorite where you're like, this guy's skill set is so good that even though he's fighting a really good opponent, there's just levels to this shit, and you have to pay up minus 500 to get a fighter of that quality. And then there's the situation where she's like, oh, she's fighting Wu Yanan? All right, I'll lay minus 400 because this girl stinks. But at the end of the day, this is not Islam Makhachev. This is a grappler who's never shot a takedown. This is a woman who blocks punches with her face and then encourages you to hit her again. You don't lay minus 450 on that. So, yeah, I would bet Wu before I would bet Mayra, but I still think it's 1-800-GAMBLER, and you really shouldn't be invested in this fight for anything more that you just couldn't completely laugh off after you lost it.
Seriously, Weezy, because would it shock you at all if Wu pulled an Aljamain Sterling split decision on Saturday because she was the more active striker? Seriously, if she doesn't ever go for a takedown, Silva's not going to. And if she lands maybe 2 more jabs in the 3rd round than Silva does, are you going to be shocked if she wins a split?
And Wu walks forward too. So
she
the
does.
Optics might actually be there for her. So yeah, and would I be surprised if she just got absolutely dusted in the first minute or 2? No, she's not that good, but I'm just not betting on it, dude. I'm not going to be there betting on it.
If they give me 12-1 on Wu by decision here, I'm going to sprinkle. That's how you.
That's true. That's true. Yes.
All right, man. Next fight up, we got Pat Sabatini taking on TJ Laramie. A real fight. A fight that I'm actually excited to talk about. Two really solid prospects. And Pat Sabatini, Wheezy, he's my boy now. Like, I know everyone is going to be shocked to hear that because I've tried to fade this man. I was not sold on the fact that he was legitimate. I wanted to take advantage of it early. But what you find in those spots, Wheezy, is there's a small window on those legit fighters where you can take advantage of one or two holes in their game. They took too big of a step up in competition. You can catch them with their pants down. Well, that spot happened. And then Pat Sabatini wrapped up a leg lock. So I missed my opportunity. And it's gone. I'm done. I understand the kid's legit. He looks like a monster in the making, and he's getting better every single time he comes out. So I'm no longer looking to bet against Pat Sabatini. I'm on the train now. So I like Pat Sabatini a lot, man. Slick boxing skills. That back. Holy hell. This man is two human beings wide. He's incredibly muscular, powerful, good, solid wrestling, and a really aggressive jiu-jitsu game. He is a human backpack, Wheezy. If you get this man on you, he is never coming off unless you tap or the round ends. Like, there's nothing you can do once he gets to your back. Now, TJ Laramie, 12-4. He hasn't fought since that round one loss to Minner back in 2020. He was one of the first guys that turned me on to the Dana White Contender Series fade, Wheezy, because I had TJ Laramie in like a round-robin parlay situation that night. Really thought he was going to be good enough defensively to survive against Minner, but we all know what Minner does. He can finish in round one. If he doesn't get you in round one, then you're going to take over and win the fight. Man, Laramie's foot got caught up against the cage, and he got pinned in, couldn't roll out or defend the choke, and just shit like that happens in MMA. I think if they run it back, Laramie wins by decision. So I don't want to hold that against him too hard, but Wheezy, he's undersized. Like, the kid's got decent boxing. He's really small for the division. And a guy like Pat Sabatini doesn't usually enjoy a super height and reach advantage. He is 2 inches taller, and he's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage in this spot. Like, I don't see where TJ Laramie wins this fight. I know he's going to come out to compete. I know he's going to be hungry. He's had 2 years off. We should expect improvements from him. But I think it's a really bad stylistic matchup for him, Wheezy.
I have the exact same read on this fight, Clint. You know, TJ is only 24 years old, right? And this kid, you know, back at the age of 20, 19, he's fighting 5-round fights in TKO. You know, he's fighting Charles Jourdain. You know, he's fighting Vince Murdoch. He's fighting, you know, UFC level competition on the regional scene at a very young age. But what we notice about him right away is that he's a specialist. He's undersized, but he's a great wrestler, and he's got great top control, and he's got great ground and pound. But what happens if he can't take you down? He's going to be in trouble. Dude, there was one fight, or actually, so he's been knocked out by Alex Morgan twice, right? One of those fights is available on the tape index. In that fight, he didn't shoot a takedown, and he got caught. His loss to Vince Murdoch, that was a fight that he absolutely won that fight. That fight, he won it. He won the first 2 rounds clearly, and then the third round was close. They gave that fight to Vince Murdoch. So what's interesting here is Laramie has 4 pro losses. 3 of them are inside the distance. And the one that wasn't inside the distance, he fucking won that fight. So here's the angle, right? Because I'm looking to parlay Pat Sabatini. I love Pat Sabatini's fight IQ. I am convinced that if TJ Laramie takes down Pat Sabatini, Sabatini's going to start working for one of those legs. He's going to use that leg lock to sweep. He's going to get on top, and he's going to finish the fight. TJ Laramie does not have the jiu-jitsu pedigree that Pat Sabatini has. Pat Sabatini, Division I or Division II wrestler over at Rider University. So even if TJ's only path to victory here is wrestling, he might not even be able to take Pat down. Now, Pat hasn't stuffed a takedown yet in the UFC, so we should keep that in mind. But like I say, like you said, it's kind of a nightmare matchup here for TJ. But we always have to keep in mind when we're looking at a 24-year-old prospect that's fought legitimate competition, that's fought 5 rounds, these guys can be making improvements. Maybe the striking's way better. Maybe the wrestling defense and offense is even better. Maybe he wins minutes on top. You know, maybe his jiu-jitsu defense is way better. But, you know, he's been finished in 3 of 4 losses. The other one he won. And Pat Sabatini is a savage finisher, and he's got the kind of Brazilian jiu-jitsu that you just don't want to be on the ground with this guy. And TJ doesn't bring anything in the striking that scares you. So it's kind of hard to see any other result here, but Pat Sabatini getting his hand raised.
Yeah, I agree, Weezy. And I honestly, what we might see in this spot is a striking match. When we see high-level grapplers go at it, they tend to wash in the grappling, and we end up with a striking battle. And I could see that happening a lot, you know, very, very clearly here. Pat Sabatini, while he's a good wrestler, I think he's going to struggle to take Laramie down. So if Laramie's controlling the wrestling, I don't know if he's going to want to engage in the jiu-jitsu with someone like Sabatini. And the hips on that kid, his sprawl is something. Yeah. So I think we could see a boxing match. And I really think that Sabatini by decision is maybe the sneaky way to look at this. Everyone's really expecting that sub. I don't think he's got the power to knock someone like TJ Laramie out. And if this fight takes place 15 minutes on the feet, we're going to get a close competitive striking match that I think is going to go to the guy with the reach advantage.
Well, yeah, and he's got a nice little 4-inch reach advantage, 2-inch height advantage. You know, he's got a couple more fights, one more UFC level fight. You know, there's a lot of things to like about Pat here, but it's that grappling, you know, because he's going to be able to probably keep in check what Laramie does best. And, you know, when fighters are taken out of what they do best, they usually don't perform well. And, man, they are not doing TJ Laramie any favors with this fight, man. Pat Sabatini, after 2 years off, God, the kid's only 24 years old, man. This is rough. Who's TJ's manager, man? Just let that call pass you by. There's a lot of guys you'd rather fight than Pat at this point.
Right? Like you get busted in your UFC debut, kind of a fluky loss that you take. All right, brush yourself off, kid. Come on back. But no, you sit on the sidelines for 2 years, and then you get this monster Pat Sabatini for your next fight. Woof. Man, give him somebody else coming off the Contender Series. Don't bury the kid. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens, Weezy. But I got Sabatini. I think I like him by decision. I don't mind him in parlays. Price is steep, but I think he rightfully wins.
Yeah, I'll be looking to parlay Pat with somebody, but you know, I mean, Mayra Bueno Silva, no, that means I want you sending the orderlies to my house if I do that. So yeah, I'm looking for something to parlay him with. Maybe we can find something before we hit the end of this card.
We'll figure it out, Weezy. We'll figure it out. All right, moving right along. Devin Brown Bear Clark taking on William Knight in one of the weirdest fights I think we're going to talk about this evening. Not because, you know, it's just a strange matchup stylistically or anything like that, but Weezy, these boys are fighting at heavyweight. These are 2 185 pounders who have piled the muscle onto themselves and, you know, masquerade around at 205 for funsies, and they're moving up a weight class for this one to fight at heavyweight. Now, the reason for that, I'm pretty sure, is because of what happened in Will Knight's last fight. He is a gigantic human being. Like, the amount of muscle on his frame is realistically impossible for 99.9% of human beings to attain. I don't know how he does it, but he's a massive man. And he came into his last fight on short notice and cut something ridiculous, like 46 pounds or some shit. You know, normal humans would die in that circumstance, Weezy, but he missed weight, made it to the fight, didn't look great. And because of the quick turnaround, because of his body, it takes him a while to chip down to where he needs to be to hit 205 appropriately. So they're just fighting a heavyweight for this one. Brown Bear, one of my absolute favorite fades, Weezy. I have never been a believer in Devin Clark. He's got those giant running back thunder thighs. And if he didn't have those, he would legitimately be a 185 pounder. He's just not that big. He's fast when he wants to explode. He's a strong wrestler, but he doesn't like getting hit, Weezy. His boxing is decent, but his striking is simply to close the distance, and then he hangs on for dear life. Yeah. Taking on a guy like Will Knight, I know Will is green. I know he's a little rough around the edges. And I know we saw him not too long ago give up all those trip takedowns to Da Un Jung. That is so burned into my memory right now. It's hard to back up Will Knight in this spot, man, but honestly, I think he's got the higher ceiling. I think he's more explosive. I think that someone like Devin Clark is going to have a real difficult time out grappling this man for 15 minutes straight just because of his sheer physicality. And then when they do end up going at it striking, I think Will probably hits harder. And on top of that, he's not going to have to use his goofy little fadeaway striking that he likes to do because you don't fear Brown Bear's power. He's not a knockout puncher. It's not a guy he's going to have to worry about getting hit by. Man, we got an underdog spot here on Will Knight, and I made a gigantic mark here on my notes, Wheezy. Don't be a fan because everybody knows I love Will Knight. His story is cool. He's a cool dude. I like everything about him, and that has kind of biased me into backing him a couple of times where maybe I probably should have just passed. But this is the kind of spot where we're dealing with a circus freak style fight up at heavyweight for no reason, where I think it really favors him. And a guy that I already enjoy being on the other side of in Devin Clark, plus 150 on Will Knight, just doesn't sound that bad to me, Wheezy. What are you thinking here?
Well, if you're on that Knight side for plus 150, I think the way that I would play it is I would try to take him inside the distance and bet even less money to win the same amount. Because look, William Knight finishing 82% of his 11 wins inside the distance, right? So that's 9 of his 11 wins inside the distance. Devin Clark, 6 pro losses, 5 of them inside the distance. So if William Knight wins this fight, there's a good chance that he's knocking him out or submitting him on the ground, right?
Yeah.
And then Devin Clark, this is the kind of fight we can kind of throw the time props out because they're already baked into each fighter's win condition. Devin Clark has 6 wins in the UFC, and zero of them have been inside the distance. He's never finished anybody at the UFC level. And William Knight's only been finished once in his pro career. And that was by Tafon and Shukwi, and he was not out. He was not done. It was just a quick stoppage. So that's an interesting way to look at this fight because stylistically, the way that I'm breaking this one down is we know what Devin Clark does, right? He uses his striking to close the distance. He gets in on a single or a double leg. He tries to take you down, and he tries to hold you there. Mm-hmm. William Knight has 45% takedown defense. He's been taken down 12 times, and he's gotten 12 takedowns. But here's the rub, right? William Knight has accumulated 12.7% control time in the UFC, and he's yielded 35% control time against. And he's gotten just as many takedowns as his opponents have. So my problem with betting the Knight side here is that I don't think he's going to win minutes. I don't think Devin Clark is going to let him kind of like stay at distance and try to land leg kicks and throw bombs. I think that this is going to be a wrestling match. And Devin Clark, 35% takedown accuracy, 2.5 takedowns per 15 minutes, out-controlling his opponents 36% to 27%. He's going to be fighting the game plan that he likes to fight. William Knight hasn't really shown that he can stop that kind of a game plan yet, and he really had a striker throw him around in Da Un Jung. But it's Devin Clark, you know? The wins haven't been terribly impressive, you know. If you compare these guys' wins side by side, you know, neither one of them has better wins than the other, really. In terms of who they're losing to, it's Clark who's losing to the more experienced, better competition. But this is going to be an interesting one. If you're on the Knight side, I would encourage you to bet him inside the distance, Clint. And if you're on that Clark side, I think Brown Bear by decision is another good way to go. And shit, you could bet both. And as long as one of them comes through, you're coming out ahead. So it's a way to kind of bet both guys by their most likely win condition and come out with a small profit. So that's the way I'm breaking down this fight. I'm actually leaning Brown Bear here, but I don't think I could bet him unless I actually did the decision bet and I got better than like plus 250.
What is that decision prop right now, Weezy?
I think it's sitting right around plus 230 on Bet Online right now for Devin Clark.
Honestly,
I can
guys,
refresh the page here.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get fancy on this one, take Brown Bear by decision because, like we've talked about, first off, that number's stupid. That's his only win condition. So
I'm wrong. Now I'm showing on 5 dimes plus 160 for Clark by decision, and he's plus He's minus 172 on the money line. So there is some value there, you know.
That's a swing.
But still, that's his win condition. So that's the way I would bet it. But
that's his
not
only win condition, and that's a good number to bring a favorite down to being a plus money underdog. I mean, we talked about it like with Tisha Torres last week, and then of course I went like an idiot and bet the money line anyway, just in case. No, there's no way I see Devin Clark finishing William Knight in this spot. I simply do not see it. Knight is too tough. Brown Bear doesn't have power. And if you think he's going to just like choke him out or something, I mean, when has Brown Bear ever really shown off jiu-jitsu chops in the UFC? Like, I don't see it. So if you want to take Brown Bear by decision at plus 160, plus 170, whatever it is, and then take William Knight straight because he could win a decision. He could win inside the distance. You got plus 155 there. Man, that doesn't sound like a bad option. Like, you got plus money on both sides. You're almost free rolling that fight.
Yeah, and then the only way you lose money is if Devin Clark gets his first ever UFC finish.
Yeah.
And he would have to do it at heavyweight.
Literally his first ever UFC finish, up a weight class. I don't see it happening. So, guys, we might have just found the steal spot on the card to go ahead and lock up both sides of the fight and just try and not sweat it. All you got to worry about is Knight getting tapped, and I don't think it's happening. So, you know what? I'm still going to go ahead and say, Wheezy, that I'm going to stand by what I said. I do think that Knight is a live dog in this spot. I think the heavyweight move favors him far more than it favors a guy like Brown Bear. And Brown Bear is absolutely a fade on my personal list. I know a lot of people have Will Knight fade on their list, but I think the kid is raw. I think he's going to get better. I think he's got some upside, and that explosiveness, the way that Devin Clark reacts to punches, I really think we could see Knight get a TKO win here. So Knight inside the distance, Knight by knockout. I can't wait for those numbers to come out for me. I will be taking a look at the finish props for my guy William Knight in this fight, maybe having a little degenerate sprinkle. Probably not a big investment because, like I said, I need to not be a fan, but I got a hard time not wrapping my head around Knight being the side here.
Yeah, and you know, and the thing you always got to keep in mind when you're betting on or against William Knight is that ridiculous athleticism that he has. I mean, you see this guy in the regional scene competition. He wins a fight and then he does 2 handsprings and a backflip. You know, I'd wind up in a hospital if I tried to do some shit like that. You know, I mean, this guy's got 200 pounds of muscle on that frame, and he's doing like acrobatics in the cage. He's, you know, and he's, like you said, he's raw. He's very raw, very short mixed martial arts career. William Knight barely started even fighting till I think he was around 30, you know, so he's very raw, very athletic. And he's the kind of guy who can just shut your lights out, because to see that kind of athleticism and power in one place is very rare.
It's crazy. I can't wait, though. Should be fun, man. Another one. It's always, you know, a matter of can Devin Clark hang on for dear life in his fights. So it's always interesting to watch, man.
Yeah.
All right. Coming up next, we've got some more ladies. Liana Länsberg taking on Kianzad in a much more competitive and interesting fight here for this next one, man. Honestly, this is such a cool fight to talk about because this is a rematch of, I believe, Kianzad's first ever UFC fight. First ever MMA fight. I apologize. Not UFC fight, but the first ever professional fight of her career was against this opponent. And now she's getting a chance at redemption, the rematch here against Lina Länsberg. Man, 9 years ago. And then they circle it all the way back around. Lina Länsberg has a 50% takedown defense rating. Kianzad's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. It's funny because, Weezy, I noticed running back the tape on Lina Länsberg, they call her the elbow queen. You know, you think she's going to be some vicious finisher. She's going to be in these crazy striking matches. She always ends up in a grappling grind. Every single fight, it's against the cage. It's on her back. It's reversing. She takes over when her opponents slow down and gas out. Like, it's just grind with Lina all the time. Man, honestly, I'm not entirely sure what she does well outside of her ground and pound. She's gritty. She's tough. She's got violent ground and pound, and that's kind of where the line ends for me. Kianzad, she's got a strong Muay Thai plum. She's really powerful in that clinch. She pummels well. She's good at grinding people up against the cage, which is part of how she beat Lina Länsberg the first time. She does keep a nice high, tight, boxing guard, sharp, crisp hands, long jab. She's got a nasty left hook on her, man. And she sits down on her punches. She does a good job of being very, very selective with her shots, so she can feel a little low volume at times, but then she opens up and she starts hurting people with 1 or 2 punches. It's a spot where I think Pannie Kianzad is justifiably a favorite here, but geez, minus 390 on Kianzad, plus 325 to come back on Lina Länsberg. Again, like I said, I get it. I like Kianzad's overall MMA game better than Lina Länsberg's, but Wheezy, this has got split decision written all over it for me.
So like the read that you had right off the bat, you were saying like, wow, why does Lina Länsberg like never seem to be striking, right? I mean, she's the elbow queen. She's the Muay Thai practitioner. Shouldn't she be striking? Dude, the control time numbers for and against for Länsberg, she controls her opponents 31% of the time, and she gets controlled almost 46% of the time. 78% of her fights are taking place in control time positions. And, so she's going to try to win minutes up against the cage. She's not really going to take down Pannie Kianzad. Pannie's only been taken down 5 times in 7 fights. She's got 77% takedown defense. And Lina Länsberg has completed 5 takedowns in 8 UFC fights. So I don't really see Lina taking down Pannie here. She's got good takedown defense. I see this being a fight that kind of just takes place up against the cage, with both of their backs on the cage at different parts of the fight. I think it's going to be greasy. And, I mean, look, Lina is 40 years old. Pannie is 30 years old. Okay, so Pannie's 10 years younger. Guess what? Pannie's been doing this longer. That wasn't Pannie's debut where she beat Lina. It was Lina's debut, and it was Pannie's second fight. So not only is Pannie younger, right? But she's also, been doing this longer. She's beaten the far better brand of UFC competition here. She's fought the better brand of competition, including the losses. And we see some kind of, we at least see when we watch Pannie Kianzad, she passes the eye test. She stops takedowns. She looks great on her feet. She can absolutely win minutes there. And she wins moments there too, because she hits hard. She's got some good knees. That left hook, like you said, is very, very good. So look, this is one you probably don't want to overthink too much. You got a 40-year-old woman in Lina Länsberg who's, hasn't fought in over 2 years and, is less experienced at that than Pannie, and it hasn't beaten or fought the same level of UFC competition. So, I mean, it's Pannie, but, am I laying minus 400 on women's MMA? No, I'm not doing that. I'm not trying to pick a method of victory here. This is going to be, along with the Wu Yanan, Mayra Bueno Silva fight, this is going to be one that I'm going to be staying away from, but I'm very confident that Pannie gets the job done.
Good deal, Weezy. I like it. Man, I agree with you, but like I said, I feel kind of a greasy type of fight because that's what always happens in Lina's fights. Now, I know, somebody mentioned she's coming back from a layoff, having a kid, that kind of thing. That's a gigantic red flag for all of us gamblers. That's usually something you want to go against. So I get it. Maybe a parlay, but damn, again, though, I just minus 400 for this caliber of a fighter. It's sketchy, man. And if this thing ends up on the cage, if it ends up on the ground, thank God we're back in the Apex. We don't have to worry about some, crazy boondock judges out in the boonies doing something that we don't understand, don't know what they're watching. We have the usual suspects of people who don't know what they're watching.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Better the incompetence that you know than the incompetence that you don't know.
Exactly. I'm all set and ready for old Adelaide Bird to get back in the driver's seat for me. Man, I'm going to pick Kianzad. I like it, but I think it could get hairy. So, again, I would just tend to caution everybody on that one.
Yeah.
And J Rowe in the chat, thank you for the shout out, my friend. That 2,800 was sweet. So anybody watching the show, for the first time, I'm coming off a good solid event last week, thanks to Aljamain Sterling. And I gave out the split decision prop on Aljamain Sterling on the Friday Undefeated post weigh-in show. Guys, I tell everybody every single time, I do my best work on the Friday Undefeated show. I make some of my best reads and my best moves on that show. Now, I didn't tweet out the action for this split decision prop because I have the sponsorship with Superbook Sports. That's not a line they offer. So all of my odds for my betting purposes and things like that have got to come from Superbook Sports. So that's the reason I didn't tweet it. I made sure I snuck it in there on the Friday show, so those of you who watched and listened got in on that action. You're going to have to kind of keep an eye out for those kinds of things, because if there's something that like DK is offering, I'm not allowed to use it. So, you know, I'll try and kind of tip you guys off if that's something that I do end up pulling out, and that's what I tried to do in that spot. So my record for 2022, folks, says after getting this 8-unit win, I'm going to be down about 12 units or so. I promise you I'm positive. Money in the pocket, I'm positive. But because it wasn't an official bet, because it wasn't an official tweet like I like to do, I will not be honoring that 28-1 shot on my record, because I'm a stickler for the rules, Wheezy. If I don't tweet it, it's not official. It don't go on the record. That's how it works. I don't make the rules, except I do, and I follow the rules when I make them. So that's what's going on there for anybody wondering. Definitely felt good, though. That was one single fight literally dug me out of a hole, not only for that fight card, but for the entire calendar year.
Yeah, you hit a 28-1 shot, especially one that you were confident about, and you put a little bit more on it than you normally would, that size of a bet. Man, I mean, it changes your year. It absolutely does.
I mean, 28-1, 950 on the decision prop regular, not the split, but just the decision, and then 4-1 on the money line for a 2-unit shot. Like, I mean, yeah, massive swing for me just on All Joe. Everybody, we have got 250 live viewers. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us again tonight here on Pub Sports Radio. Smash that like button, and we're going to take one final break before we get to the last couple of fights on the card here. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are talking UFC Vegas 51. Drakkar Klose taking on Brandon Jenkins. And you smell that, Wheezy?
I smell
That?
something.
That smells like a bed shitter to me, Wheezy. Man, this is the spot, Wheezy. Let me tell you. So Drakkar Klose. The tale of Drakkar Klose. I feel like I need to do like an animated, like Monty Python and the Search for the Holy Grail thing, where it's like the little old school guy. The tale of Drakkar Klose is a very strange one, Wheezy. He's an Arizona boy, so by all means, I should be, in his back pocket and cheering for him every single fight. But he's so untrustworthy for me in the cage. He seems like a, frankly, mid-level fighter to me. Decent boxing, solid power, decent grappling, good gas tank, like checks all the boxes for being a UFC caliber fighter, but he doesn't excel anywhere for me, Weezy. And then you have a situation where he starts hopping gyms. He's just a lost man for a couple of years. He gets kicked out of one gym. He moves from like the MMA lab to Syndicate, and then he moves from Syndicate to some boxing gym in the middle of nowhere, and then he tries his way at Fight Ready. He has a falling out with Fight Ready. Now he's back at the MMA lab. I mean, like, so you should think, mentally speaking, he's in a good spot being back. I listened to my guy James Lynch, always doing the best interviews in the business, and he said that he felt like he was home now that he's back at the MMA lab. So as far as, being a lost fighter, his mental state, like, you got to think that's probably a positive there for him to be back where he's comfortable. But I don't know that that's enough for me, Wheezy. And then you go back, the loss that he had to Beneil Dariush. Whoo! That knockout, you're talking about when guys get KO'd and you go, oh, he's dead. Like, that was one of those knockouts. And I don't think he ever came back from it, Wheezy. I will never forgive Jeremy Stephens for shoving him at weigh-ins because I guarantee you that Jeremy Stephens was going to knock his ass out. Not because Jeremy Stephens is the better fighter. I think Drakkar Klose is the better fighter. But Jeremy's power at that weight class, he was very obviously not recovered from that knockout loss. And he got such bad whiplash from Jeremy Stephens just pushing him that they had to call the fight. Wheezy, I don't think that's the kind of thing you come back from. And if his durability is in question to that extent, the flying knees of this guy, man, I am not a gigantic fan of Brendan Jenkins. I think he's untested, 1-1 so far in the UFC, just barely getting the ball rolling. He's not a guy that I am like writing home about, but he throws some crazy shit, man. He is super unorthodox. He moves super crazily. He's hittable because he really relies on like his head movement and stuff like that to get out of the way of stuff. And you can catch him. You absolutely can. And I apologize. His flying knee win over Kilburn was his UFC debut, but then he got TKO'd by Zhu Rong, which is a big red flag because Rong is a guy that we have realized is kind of a bust, in the UFC at this point. So not the best look for him there. That wild, unorthodox striking is something that's a double-edged sword for a guy like Brendan Jenkins. I just think all it's going to take is a touch. But something that me and my co-host last week talked about, Wheezy, is you want to fade somebody. And you want to fade them so badly that you take the wrong fighter to fade them
against.
And that was Mickey Gall last week. I came this close, Wheezy. This close. I decided to live bet it after round 1, and thank God I waited because I didn't get to my bet because of the way that fight ended. The value was on Mickey Gall, but he never made it out of round 1, which is exactly what we thought might happen. That's kind of how I feel about this spot. I really want to fade Drakkar Klose. I don't know that Brandon Jenkins is the guy to do it, but those flying knees, those spinning heel kicks, I honestly think he could do it with just one if Drakkar Klose is not fully recovered. Drakkar in his interview mentioned that he wants to go out and just get the win. Wheezy, he's coming for takedowns. He's going to grapple. I can't trust Drakkar Klose at minus 550. I want no part of Drakkar Klose at minus 550. You can't really trust Brendan Jenkins. He might not truly be UFC caliber. At plus 425, you've got that banana peel price tag if you really want to take a shot on a guy going for a KO. The number's there. Roll the dice. Go for it. But this is another fight that just is giant red flags on both sides for me. I don't know that I can really get involved without taking a sprinkle on a prop.
So, yeah, the way I'm looking at this fight is you see that Jenkins in the last performance against Ru, whatever, he was controlled for 65% of the fight. He gave up 6 takedowns. What does Drakkar Klose do? He shoots about 5 takedowns a fight. He gets 1.5 takedowns for 15 minutes. He controls his opponents about 23% of the time. He puts people's back up against the cage. And, what he basically does is he just dirties up the fight. He walks forward. He fights the kind of fight that Brendan Jenkins is probably going to have a very hard time winning minutes in because he's going to make this fight dirty. Brendan Jenkins needs space. You need space to operate. Drakkar is not the kind of guy who's going to give you space. So I think that this is Drakkar Klose's fight, but we talked about the line. This is about lines. It's about prices. It's overpriced, I mean, Drakkar should absolutely get this done, but, we can't look too much into the shoving thing because, when you cut that much weight, you can look up at the lights and pass out. Yeah. You see, and, I remember a while back when, you remember when Julia Stolyarenko got on the scale and just looked absolutely awful and she fell down. And then they went to Cormier, right? And this is a guy who grew up in wrestling rooms. And he was saying, look, it's not that big a deal. And people were like, what are you talking about? She almost died. He goes, look, let me explain something to you. These people cut weight all the time. When you cut that much weight, you're dehydrated, you're susceptible. When you fall down, you get back up, you drink some water, and you're okay, Yeah. But when you dehydrate yourself that much to make weight, you are incredibly susceptible to anything that can make your body sick. whether it's just food poisoning. The wrong thing you eat can screw you over. And Jeremy shoves the guy. His, I think it was a spine injury, or it was I don't know if it was a concussion or whatever it was. I don't want to read too much into that. There's two reasons. One, because of the weight cut. Two, because Drakkar is not the kind of guy who's going to stand there in the middle of the cage and let this guy throw spinning shit and flying knees at him. I think he's going to walk forward. I think he's going to get his arms around him, put him up against the cage, and probably take him down and work him over. So Klose should get this done. Am I parlaying him up at -500? No, I'm definitely not. But Drakkar should get this job done. It is a good stylistic matchup for him, but I get what people are doing. If you're taking Jenkins, dude, look, Jenkins has finished 87% of his pro wins inside the distance, 13 of 15 wins inside the distance. He's a huge underdog here. Dude, if you take him inside the distance. It's his only win condition. He's not going to win minutes in this fight. He's not going to win minutes or bank rounds. So take him inside the distance. Shit, you'll probably get +5, +600. That's the way to play Brandon Jenkins this week.
Yeah, hit the nail on the head, Weezy. That's really the only way to do it. I don't want Klose at this line. If you're a just win type of person and you want to parlay him up, you go right ahead at -550, -600. You're still going to be eating chalk. He probably makes it look easy with his grappling, Weezy, but I can't trust the guy at that number personally. So either going to have to get creative or, sprinkle on the dog inside the distance, something like that. A couple people in the chat shouting out that Klose is at fight ready, and why am I not on the fight ready train? Because I'm always on the fight ready train. Should have known better than to doubt fight ready Marco Madsen. Weezy absolutely should have known better than to go against fight ready Marco Madsen. But guys, he's not at fight ready anymore. He had a falling out with fight ready. So we can't count on the fight ready magic. Now that said, Ben Henderson, the MMA lab, they're not bad. So,
yeah.
Not that big of a step down. I don't know that his conditioning is going to be quite the same. We know what, Air Force One or your Neuro Force One does over at Fight Ready for people's bodies. I don't think he'll get quite that rub, but he's surrounded by good people, good coaches. Not too big of a knock to be at the MMA lab.
Yeah. It's a fight that you just kind of got to stay away from because it's a horrible stylistic matchup for Jenkins, but he's live for a KO. So if you want to play that KO prop, that's probably the best way to go to get some, -6, -700. You don't have to put shit on that in order to win a little bit, To win one unit, come on. Put an eighth of a unit down, you're good. If you lose the bet, you don't cry.
Yep. Little sprinkles, man. That might be this entire card for me. Like, I'll have a whole 2 units risked because they're all going to be like 0.2 unit sprinkles on crazy ass shit. That'll just be the whole card.
Those are fun, man. They're fun bets. And sometimes you hit a 28-1, don't you, Clint?
Yeah, sometimes you do. Next up, we got Rafa García taking on Jesse the Body Snatcher Ronson. And guys, this is my one and only pre-show locked-in bet of the card. I am 4 units deep on Ronson in this spot, Weezy. I got even money, +100. And if you look over at Superbook Sports, he is already -105. Rafa García is the -115 favorite in this spot. And guys, I know I said this about Kay Hansen. Bear with me, please. I think that the wrong fighter is favored, and I think this is a mismatch. Like, I really don't understand this line, Weezy. Maybe you've got some numbers that can tell me a different story, but Jesse Ronson's a guy that is paraded around up at 170. Hell, his UFC debut against Dalby, he came out and punched the guy in the mouth and then choked him out in the first round at 170 pounds, being massively undersized. Like, this guy's physicality is unreal. He's a dude that can punch up a weight class and doesn't even blink when he does it. He was on James Lynch's show. Again, shout out to the legend James Lynch. He was talking about how he got, popped by USADA. And that's the big story right now, is that he's coming from a long layoff after taking away, he took like a 6-year break from MMA or something like that, gets his win over Dalby, and then he gets popped by USADA and is gone for like another 20 months. So it's just a weird situation for this guy. But the fact is, he said it's a tainted supplement. Now, you can't always believe the fighters, but every once in a while you can pick your spots and you can go, I've watched this guy a lot. I believe him when he says X, Y, and Z. That's what I did with Aljamain Sterling last week. Turned out okay. That's kind of what I'm doing here with Jesse Ronson. He's been kind of a freak, physically speaking, his entire career. So if he says he's taken a tainted supplement, it's the one and only time he's ever popped for anything. I'll believe him. I'm going to roll the dice, Wheezy. He's a guy that can fight well at 170, and he's going down to 155 where he's going to have a size advantage for the first time in a long time. And he's taken on Rafa Garcia, a guy that he came to the UFC, and it's the curious case of Rafa Garcia, Wheezy. Like, we really don't know what to make of this man because he looked like a monster against Nasrat Haqparast in his UFC debut. Comes in on short notice, fights like a boss, and then falls off a cliff. You know, his last couple of fights have been really weird. He's got gas tank issues. He starts fast and slows down, kind of hanging on for dear life at the end of his fights. And you think he's this crazy good striker, but he really relies on his grappling. Dude shoots 4 takedowns per 15 minutes with a 44% accuracy. Like, we kind of bill him as a striker, but he's more of a wrestler. Man, Ronson, I think, is just maybe the worst case scenario matchup for this guy. Rafa Garcia is tough. He's gritty. I like him, but Ronson's going to be bigger. He's going to be stronger. He's got that serious power in his hands, and he's got a dangerous submission attack. So if Rafa wants to go to the ground with this, man, Ronson is going to be more than happy to take it there. 17 wins by finish. He understands the assignment, man. He talked on James Lynch's show about how he knows this guy slows down after about the first minute or two, so he wants to go ahead and burn that candle. He's going to come out hard. He's going to come out fast. He's going to push a pace on Rafa Garcia. Now, if he can't get Rafa out of there, maybe that backfires. Maybe that doesn't do well for him down the run. But considering his size and strength advantages that he's going to have, I got a feeling he finishes in round 1, man. I took 4 units, big hammer, plus 100, Jesse Ronson. I think he gets it done, and I think he makes it look easy.
So you know that Ronson did not debut against Dalby, right?
Yeah, like I said, he came off a long break, right? Did I say debut? I do apologize.
Yeah, you said it was
debut.
the UFC debut because this guy had one of the roughest runs through the UFC you could have ever had, dude. This guy, I think his first fight was Kevin Lee. Then they gave him Francisco Trinaldo, and then they gave him, another Prazeres, right? So this guy has 3 UFC fights against 3 guys who wrestle the living shit out of him. He loses all of them by split decision, right?
Yes.
And against that kind of level of competition, then he goes back out to the regional scene, has a ton of success, comes back in against Dalby, finishes a guy in Dalby who nobody finishes this guy. You know, so he landed a big shot, got on his neck and tapped him out, you know? And it's like, holy shit, Jesse Ronson's back. And then they're like, oh, sorry. You know, USADA says no. And now we got to understand, now it's like, okay, well, was it tainted supplements? Was it, that this guy had been on a bit of a layoff and said, this time, I'm fucking winning, and he did. He won, but we don't know. But what we do know about Rafa Garcia here, right? Yikes. Lands 3.53 significant strikes a minute, absorbs 5.47. He's absorbing 2 more significant strikes a minute than he's landing. He lands with a 35% accuracy. He has no knockdowns. Striking defense, 54%. Now, Ronson's much cleaner and crisper, and he's got a lot of power in the stand-up. One of the reasons why he was shot 31 takedowns on in 3 UFC fights is because people don't want to box with this guy. Plain and simple. So Garcia will be wrestling here. He's going to be wrestling. He's shot 27 takedowns in 3 UFC fights. And in the Levy fight, I really saw Garcia's gas tank hold up in that fight. The Gritzenmacher fight, it let him down. But he pushed a heavy grappling game plan there with Natan Levy and went the full 3 rounds and actually looked pretty good. But that was more of a ground fighting match, while Ronson's going to pressure you on the feet. So it's a little bit different stylistic matchup here. But when we look at the numbers for Garcia, there's just not a lot there. He's going to have to win minutes on the ground against Ronson. That's his path, right? He's going to have to get takedowns. He's going to have to hold him down. You have to land some shots while he's there. Ronson's going to get back up, though. And when you watch that old footage, if Prazeres can't hold you down, if Kevin Lee can't hold you down, if Trinaldo can't hold you down, I don't think that Rafa Garcia is like, on that level in terms of his wrestling. He mixes it in to win minutes and bank rounds occasionally, but I think that this is a little bit different of a situation here. Another thing that we got to watch out for, Clint, is I don't know if this fight's at 155 or 170. Tapology and UFC Stats have it in two different places. I believe on UFC Stats, they're calling this fight 155, and I think on Tapology, they're saying it's at 170. So we're going to...
According to Ronson, it's 155.
Okay, well, that's what UFC Stats is showing it at 155, but I think Tapology had it at 170 earlier this week.
Yeah.
And
I think it's just a mistake.
Yeah, it's the same thing with the Clark fight, because they had the Clark Knight is still listed at light heavyweight on the UFC website. So I don't know if that's at 265 or 205, but either way, we're going to have to look out for that. But this guy Ronson, he's fought the much better brand of competition. He's more experienced. He's going to be the better striker here. And we've seen him be okay on the ground. You know, García isn't a guy where you're like, man, if this guy takes me down, it's over. You know, like my head's going to get pounded into the canvas or I'm going to get choked. He's not like that. It's not his game. You know, he mixes it in to win minutes, but he really isn't even going to hold you down either. So I do like Ronson here to win. I think he probably gets it done inside the distance, but I wouldn't bet it simply because Rafa García has never been finished.
I hear you. That's why I took the money line, Wheezy. Like I said, I think he does it early. I think he makes it look relatively easy. I think this is a mitts match. But because we have never seen this man finished before, I want to give Rafa García his due, and I'll take the money line.
Yeah, and you don't have to. Why? Narrow your path when you're already getting even money? You don't need to do that.
It's not like I'm laying minus 175 and looking to bring that down or anything. You got even money. It's a sweet spot. I'm in. And I'm ready for this spot, man. I'm very excited for this. I'm looking forward to the body snatcher getting back in business here.
Yeah, man, I am too, dude, because the Dalby performance was so impressive, and now we haven't seen him in 2 years. So I want to see him get back in there and see what he can show us.
Absolutely, these are the kind of guys, those what if spots. We're like, yeah, like he could have been something, but so much time has passed. I hope it's not too late. I hope he comes back strong and really reminds everybody.
Yeah.
All right, man, next fight up, we have got Chris Barnett. Happy Chris Barnett fight week, everybody. Taking on Martin Buday. And this is your Dana White Contender Series fade spot of the week if you're looking to play that angle, man. Chris Barnett, he's chunky Israel Adesanya, Wheezy. Like, this guy, we talked about how Will Knight can do backflips. This is the guy that did a full-ass front flip landing on his ass with, like, his rock'em up in the air. Like, he is ridiculously athletic. And he subscribes to the Homer Simpson style of fighting, Wheezy. What this man does is he takes your best punch in round one, and then he's got a ridiculous gas tank on him, and he just cranks up the intensity, and he works you in rounds 2 and rounds 3. That's what he's looking to do, drag you into deep waters, tire you out, and then he's got these crazy-ass jumping knees and spinning heel kicks and shit that he can finish. I mean, I know it was against Gian Vellante in his retirement fight last time out, but the fact that you can knock a man that size out when you're 5'0", like that's still damn impressive. He's been working out. He's been working out hard. He's been around the fight scene for a long time, trains with a lot of bodies. So, I mean, even though he's a guy that, he probably should be getting in shape and fighting at 185 instead of up at, heavyweight, he's still a guy that you just can't deny. He's going to pull the upset in some spots. And he's taken on Buday, who is a UFC debutante here, minus 220 favorite. Chris Barnett is plus 190 as the underdog. I was watching Buday's tape, man, and he is just a plodding heavyweight. Like, he is your classic big boy. Like, he walks forward, he's got a decent jab on him, big body kicks, and then he presses you up against the cage. He's one of these guys that just forces you to hold his weight. He tries to wear you down by making you carry the big man on top of him. He's apparently a BJJ brown belt. He's got some big clinch knees, Wheezy. That's the one thing that I did notice. 6 of his wins by knockout, 2-inch reach advantage. This is a spot, to me, where I don't want to just dive in feet first on the Dana White Contender Series fade because of the physicality difference. I think I think that Barnett is live in the sense that if his game plan works, he's going to be able to outpace Buday in rounds 2 and 3. But I also think that the sheer size and power disadvantage that he's at, Martin Buday could take this man down and just grind on him. The way he attacks the body with those big kicks, the way he knees people up against the cage, like we're in the small cage. That's going to limit a guy like Barnett. These guys are going to end up in each other's faces. And if that happens, I think, damn, Barnett's going to have to take some punishment if he wants to win this fight, Wheezy, and I'm not sure he can take that kind of output. And honestly, I'm almost a little sneaky suspicious that we see a Ben Rothwell type of situation here where if Buday can lay on him long enough, tire him out, maybe he gets a late tap instead of a TKO. Might be a sneaky submission spot. But I'm thinking Buday, live bet Barnett. Like if you want to trust a minus 220 contender series kid at a sloppy heavyweight fight, you go ahead and lay that minus 220. I'm not doing it. If it looks like Buday is fading, Barnett live should be a gigantic number since he's plus 190 already. If you can get him after the first round and Buday is slowing down, you might be able to get a plus 300, plus 400 on him live. But I think that Buday inside the distance, Barnett by decision, those are kind of the two ways that this thing plays out. Gun to my head, I'll pick Buday.
Yeah, I'm picking Buday here, but it's, Barnett with 19 more pro fights, about 150 more minutes in the pro cage, so he's a lot more experienced. He's been around. This guy's got a win over Travis View back in 2012. He's got a win over Walt Harris back in 2011. He's lost to guys like Trevor Prangley, I think. And I mean, he's got some names on his resume, and he's been doing this for Eric Prindle. That's what I was thinking. Eric Prindle, Ole Thompson, Kirill Sedelnikov, Alex Nicholson all shaved this dude's ass. He's got a loss in a grappling match to Yoel Romero. What the hell was he doing grappling with Yoel Romero? I mean, what did the line on that fight have to be? I mean,
he's a wild man.
Some weird stuff. He kickboxed against Tony Lopez and beat him, But the wins, the wins are not great. These are not awe-inspiring wins that this guy's been getting on the regional scene. And, if you're in that corner of Martin Buday, right, this is probably one of the easier coaching, checks that you're ever going to earn, because it's like, all right, I think I know what we're going to do here. We're not going to stand with this guy. You're like a foot taller than him. You weigh 40 more. You have 40 more pounds of muscle on your body. Why don't we just back his ass up into the cage, maybe drag him to the ground, pound his head through the fucking canvas, and then collect 2 checks instead of 1. We'll go back to Slovakia and we'll party, So, I mean, it feels like this should be easy. He's much bigger than this dude. He's got vicious clinch striking. So if he just closes the distance, and he's the bigger guy, it'll be easier for him to close distance. So, yeah, he should just absolutely use his size and his power in order to easily win this fight.
I agree, Weezy. And somebody in the chat pointed out he's a real heavyweight. And you can't argue that. You can't argue that. He couldn't get down to 205 if he cut a leg off. And that's a big deal. And I really legitimately think that I just think that Chris Barnett is in too deep for this one, Weezy. I love the guy. He's so good for the sport. I'm a fan. I love what he does. I love his crazy ass. I don't think he wins this fight. I just don't see it. So, yeah, I think it's Buday. And like I said, I do think he probably gets it done by finish. I hate to say that because I'm such a fan of Barnett, but I got a hard time seeing him pull this one off.
Yeah, how do you not root for a fat man that breakdances in the cage? I mean, if you guys haven't watched the Ahmed Tijani Shehu fight that took place in UAE Warriors. All right, so it's a super heavyweight fight, so it's over 265 pounds. Barnett knocks this dude out in the first round, and he does a dance routine like you can't even believe. It was fantastic. UAE Warriors 13, Ahmed Tijani Shehu versus Chris Barnett. If you like post-knockout dancing, you have to watch that fight.
It's good stuff. Make sure you go check that one out. All right, folks, we got just a couple fights left. Thank you all for sticking with us here. And we are talking Trey Ogden taking on Jordan Leavitt in a very confusing fight for me, Weezy. I can't wait to hear your take on this one. So Trey Ogden is making his UFC debut, unless I'm mistaken. And this kid was on Dana White's, newest series, not the Looking for a Fight, the other one. And I like what I see from him. 15-4. He was the Fury FC champion over there. He's a BJJ black belt. He's moved over training out of Glory MMA. He's got a nice jab. He's got good hands. He's got good leg kicks. He does these big blast double leg takedowns that I'm a fan of. And he showed off some real strong submission defense. That's important in this fight because the Monkey King has got some sub abilities on him here. The problem with Trey Ogden, he showed some good submission defense in his last fight, but he's got 3 losses by submission. So we do know that's kind of his Achilles heel down. Leave it 9-1. The Monkey King, he's just all grappling all day, man. I took him in his last fight, and it was one of those spots where he just is going to do whatever it takes to get it to the ground. He will pull guard. He will climb you like a tree. When you get in close on him, he will grab your wrist and pull you to him so he can jump on you and drag you to the floor. Like, he knows his path to victory and do whatever it takes to get it down there. He's surprisingly strong, very flexible, and he's dangerous. And honestly, man, I think there's a built-in bias against this guy because he's a little weird. Like, people just don't seem to like him because he's a little flamboyant. He puts people off, especially, the MMA culture is alpha bros. So someone like Leave It really rubs the fan base the wrong way. They want to see him lose. So I almost always expect there to be a bit of a bias, against him, especially on the money line. We got Ogden making his debut as a -130 favorite, +110 on Leave It. I mean, the skill set, I feel like Ogden has what it takes to beat someone like Leave It. He's got the wrestling he's going to need. I think he's the better striker. But again, Leave It is just this guy that it doesn't matter. He is Mackenzie Dern. Like, he will find a way to make you get on the floor with him. And if he does it, all he needs is one. And he's got a great gas tank, too. That's the other thing. I mentioned how kind of he's not perceptively strong looking, but he is. And he wears you out once he gets you on the mat. We've seen his opponents get tired from grappling with this guy. I mean, is the wrong guy favored here? Does Trey deserve to be a -130 making his UFC debut, Weezy?
Yeah, I think he does. So
Okay.
There's a few reasons for it, right? He's bigger. He's the bigger guy. He's going to be definitely the bigger guy here. He's got 9 more pro fights. He might have even fought the better level of competition here, okay? Both of these guys are submission guys, but when you watch the stand-up, it's Trey Ogden. Mm-hmm. Great diversity of striking. He hits hard. It's just that it seems to me that he prefers to grapple. But I don't think he's going to have to do that here. He's got a good wrestling background. He's got great takedowns, and he's got a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is something that Jordan Levitt doesn't even have, if I'm not mistaken. I think Jordan Levitt might even be like a purple belt or a brown belt. So I think Ogden has got it's going to be very close if we get into the submission exchanges here. But here's the thing, man. 4 losses for Ogden, 3 of them inside the distance by submission against a guy like Jordan Levitt. And if we were to go through Jordan Levitt's career, some guys, they got 10 submissions, 8 rear naked chokes, 1 guillotine choke. This guy has got, I think, he's got 6 wins by submission, and I don't think he's gotten the same submission twice. So this is a guy who can get you with a heel hook. He can get you with an arm triangle. He can get you with a rear naked choke, standing. He's all over the place. He's very unique. So fight ends in submission could be really interesting here because Trey Ogden has been guillotine choked by the same man twice. 2 of those 3 submission losses were to the same guy with the same submission. So, okay, once it happens once, you expect somebody to learn from it. Well, Levitt's that kind of grappler, where you could be doing everything right, make one mistake, and then the guy is just 2 steps ahead of you. He tricks you into doing something that you think you're defending against one thing, but you're really defending against something that's 2 moves down, and he gets he's just tricky. So I think that there's a good chance that this fight will finish inside the distance. I like Trey Ogden here because I think he can win a ton of minutes standing. But Jordan Levitt's the kind of guy who, if he's losing minutes standing, he's not too proud to pull guard. And I hear too many people say some dumb shit like, who pulls guard? Well, Alexei Oleinik just fucking pulled guard. We just saw Alexei Oleinik pull guard. Paul Craig pulls guard. You know,
best
Jordan Levitt
submission grapplers in the world pull guard, Weezy.
There are, you know, I'll tell you something. There are some mixed martial arts that you should be on your knees thanking Ja when they pull guard. There are a few of them. Damian Maia is one of them. Just whatever it is, if you're not good on the feet, pull guard. Try to take the guy's back standing. Throw a big overhand right like you're trying to blow a fastball like Javier Baez, you know, I mean, you're trying to blow it by him. You throw that big overhand right, and then you just fall into their legs on a takedown. Whatever it takes. And Levitt's going to do whatever it takes to get the fight to the ground. So it's a very, very interesting stylistic matchup. I think Ogden is more experienced. I think he's more well-rounded, and potentially he could be just as dangerous on the ground. So I have to lean him here, but Jordan Levitt is tricky, and I don't want to just hammer this. Even though I'm pretty confident about Ogden, 3 submission losses for Ogden. If there's one guy who can catch you in a web, it's Jordan Levitt.
Exactly. And honestly, man, I think what we see from James Krause's camp usually entails heavy grappling. It's usually a takedown game. They want to get in people's guards. They want to smother them. They want to win those minutes. That's what they do. And I think that'll provide Levitt with his path to victory. So I don't know what to do with this one, man. I'm kind of there with you, but I think maybe it's a little disrespectful to make the Monkey King the underdog in this kid's UFC debut. And I wouldn't be surprised if he manages to pull a Mackenzie Dern and twist this kid up in the second round somehow, the way that, you know, she just climbed up on top of Tisha Torres and managed to make something happen. I think that's what we could see happen here. We'll see if he's prepared. We'll see if he's ready for what the Monkey King throws at him. I don't expect to have a heavy investment here on this fight, Weezy.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be betting that Ogden money line, but I kind of want to see where it goes from here because he shouldn't be a big favorite, even if people do kind of flow in on him. He's making his debut. This is short notice. Jordan Levitt was supposed to be fighting Victor Martinez. So this kid's stepping up on short notice, making his UFC debut. You know, you got to keep that in mind. But I like Trey Ogden here. I do like Trey Ogden. I might be betting this money line. Okay.
I think the biggest thing for me is I want to see how they size up because I do want to see, you mentioned how large he is. I want to see him actually face off with Levitt. I want to see what he looks like. I want to see if they size up okay, because that will cause a problem. We know he's got the wrestling advantage, and if he also has a big enough size and strength advantage that he can just kind of bully, then that's going to be an issue. So we'll see what happens. This might be something I add, a little bit later, maybe a Friday post-weigh-in show type of spot, but kind of lean to the Monkey King. I guess for my official pick, I guess I say I'll lean to Levitt.
Yeah, I'm leaning heavily towards Ogden, but I want to tread lightly here. Levitt is so dangerous.
Tread lightly on this whole card, folks. Seriously, like I said,
agreed.
I've made one bet, and I legitimately feel like the wrong guy is favored. That's the only bet that I've made so far. I might have a couple of one-unit pokes on the card. Maybe if we find a total that really jumps out at us, we'll have another hammer to throw. But a lot of these bets are going to be small shots on people, small edges. Some of these lines are way too wide, so if you talk yourself into an underdog sprinkle, go for it, but this card is going to be sketchy as all hell.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you here. There's nothing that's now. I've been trying to find somebody to parlay Sabatini with, and I can't even come up with anything there. So maybe Buday, maybe I'll parlay Buday and Sabatini for close to even money. That might be what I.
That might be the move, Weezy.
Well, yeah, because it's rough. It's rough finding any kind of value out there. And you could at least just say, well, if Barnett gets it done against Buday, at least I'll probably laugh my ass off. Because it'll probably be like a fat man with a jumping knee or something and be like, I can't believe he did it again.
He'll make you feel better about it right after it's over.
Yeah, when he does it to Fat Volante, you're like, okay, that's a good, it's good one, But this is a different, this is a 30-year-old man who's got his whole career in front of him and is an absolute monster.
Exactly.
So, yeah. That'll probably be my parlay this week.
I don't mind it, Weezy. I might join you there. I might actually join you on that one. But you know what? There is another leg that maybe we can talk about coming up here. Sam Hughes taking on Estela Nunez. And Nunez is in that sweet spot, Weezy. She's a -210 favorite here over Sam Page, who is a +180 underdog. And it's funny, Weezy, because I have actually been looking forward to Sam Hughes. I think she's got some upside, another raw talent, another fighter who I think can make some improvements, some tweaks, and actually be half decent. But she's had a rough run in the UFC, man. 0-3 to start. Her back's really against the wall. She's got to get the win here. But she came into the UFC on short notice against Tecia Torres. And we found out that night that this is Tecia Torres 2.0. Like, not the old Tecia Torres. She got her first, finish in years in that fight because she is on another level at this point. That is a tough UFC debut. Then she fights Loma Lukbunmi, one of the hardest people in the division to take down. Really sneaky good in certain specific areas, and Sam just got outclassed in that spot. Then she takes on Luana with 1 week's notice, another short notice fight to take on Luana Pinheiro. And again, another solid grappler with judo hips, someone who she wasn't able to control or take down. And that's Sam Page's whole game. She needs to be able to bully you. She needs to be able to pin you up against the fence, work the grappling. She just recently packed all her bags, moved out to Fortis MMA, left her whole planet behind her, left her family behind her. She is really committing to this move, going to a better gym, someplace where she can learn and take that next level step. And it's funny, Weezy, because people know my weaknesses. Like, I do this publicly enough. People already know. Somebody tweeted me and they're like, Clint, do not bet Sam Hughes this week. And I went, don't worry. Don't worry. I'm not going to. And then I watched the tape on Estela Nunez. Weezy, I am so tempted on Sam Page in this fight. Estela Nunez, don't get me wrong, another very high upside type of fighter. She's training at ATT. She's got a good crop of women fighters around her. That is a place where you're going to go to improve. She's tall. She's long. She uses her length well, and she hits pretty damn hard. She sits down on those punches, but she likes to throw kicks, Weezy. Those kicks get caught. They get caught a lot. And she's relatively difficult to take down. She's got good hips. She scrambles well. But Weezy, she has no answer once she's on the mat. Like, she's got decent takedown defense, but once she gets put on the floor, she's got no way back up. She doesn't have a get-up game. She's got 2 professional losses. They're both by submission. And Sam Page has 3 of her 5 wins by sub. I mean, Weezy, if there's ever a spot to take a fighter with their back up against the wall in a small cage where the grapplers tend to have a little bit of an advantage, I am so tempted on Sam Page at plus 180 here for her to come out, pin Estela Nunez up against the fence. Again, maybe just bully her up against the cage, regardless of whether or not she drags her to the mat. But again, if she does get her to the mat, probably just mauls her from top position, wins around that way. This is a spot where I think the line is too wide. I just think it's too wide. I get making Estela Nunez the favorite. I think that she's the favorite. I think she's got the higher upside. Like I said, she's at a good gym. But I don't want to count out Sam Hughes, especially after she just moved and did a full camp over at freaking Fortis MMA. What do you think, Weezy? What are you doing here?
So, okay, if this fight stays standing at striking distance for the entire fight, Estela Nunez is going to destroy Sam Hughes.
Absolutely.
But if you're coaching Sam Hughes, that makes it really easy. I think that she would have a good chance to win this fight if I was in her corner, because it would be an easy game plan to formulate, wouldn't it? Look, we're not taking a backward step. We're not taking a backward step. You're going to stay in this girl's face. You're not going to let her use her length. You're going to put her back up against the cage. You're going to try to take her down. And every time it feels like that takedown is not going to happen, you're going to throw a big elbow, and then you're going to enter in on another double leg, and then you're going to try to take her down. And if you can't take her down, you're going to throw another elbow. You're going to, over and over and over again. We're not taking a backward step. You're putting her ass up against that cage, and you're going to keep her there. And if you do those things, she can win this fight, because Estela has a weakness. It's keeping the fight at her range.
Yep.
Small cage. Another thing that's going your way if you're on that Sam Hughes side, because this should be very easy for Sam Hughes to formulate a game plan that can help her win minutes. She just has to walk forward. And she's already at a reach disadvantage here, 2 inches. So that should already be in the game plan. Sam Hughes hasn't completed a takedown in the UFC, and that's a problem. Over 3 on takedowns. We'd like to see her get some takedowns in this fight. because Estella was taken down 5 times by Ariane Carnelossi on 7 attempts and was controlled for over half the fight. So that's the kind of thing that you hate to see from a striker, right? If you're laying minus 200 on Estela Nunez, you better be damn sure that this fight is going to be taking place at striking distance for more than 2/3 of the fight. Because otherwise, you know, the implied probability of what you're laying to the bookies there is not worth it. Because this could get really greasy. And Sam has won a lot of minutes up against the cage. She's good there. So this is one of those spots that I would be tempted to bet the underdog.
And just kind of connecting the dots, Wheezy, the one thing that she posted, I think, up on Instagram since she's been over with her new gym is she's got the resistance bands tied around her waist and she's walking her opponent to the fence. The coach has his back up against the cage with the bodysuit on, and she is working all kinds of attacks to keep her opponent right in front of her. You know, knees up the middle, hooks to the body to keep, you know, moving side to side.
Yeah.
I think we nailed the game plan. I think we know exactly what Sam Hughes is going to do. They're smart enough to understand the assignment here, and I think that's exactly what they're going to do. And this is a spot where, again, I think Sam Hughes, she's got that minus 300 upside. If she walks Estela Nunez down, she's going to look like she should have never been the dog in the first place. If she can close the range, crowd her so she can't use those strikes, pin her up against the fence, rough her up, drag her to the mat once or twice. And the other thing, Wheezy, is what we've really seen be the struggle for Sam Hughes is the throws. I mentioned it with her previous opponents. You said she got no takedowns so far in the UFC. And that's because she went for a ride every time she tried. If you remember, especially when she was facing Loma Lookboonmee, she would get in on Loma, and it looked like she was maybe going to make some progress, and then hip toss, and then trip. And then every single time she got locked up with this girl, she just went through the air. Estela Nunez doesn't have that skill set.
No.
I actually think there's a half-decent chance we see Sam Page's real wrestling show up here in this spot. And I'm kind of talking myself into that plus 180. The money is coming in on Nunez, so I'm probably going to sit tight, at least for the time being. I want to see what the sub prop looks like. And honestly, I kind of want to see what the decision prop looks like. Because one thing, I've talked about the improvements that Sam Hughes is making. Let's not count out the improvements that Estela Nunez is making. She's had some losses by sub. She's training at AT&T. I don't think this is going to be a lifelong problem. They'll patch that hole up. She'll grapple more often. She'll get used to being in bad positions. So maybe Sam doesn't finish her, but we get a ground-based decision. We get a control time-based decision. And I think that Sam Hughes, you know, not the obvious sub prop, but maybe the decision prop might be kind of the sneaky way to go.
Yeah, and then not only that, you know, if you're holding that plus money ticket when it gets to that decision, it's a lot better than holding the minus 200, especially
Tell me about
judges. You know, and Sam can make this greasy. And it might be the kind of fight where she tries her best to make it greasy, and she is successful doing it for about 60% of the fight, but that other 40%, Nunez lands the better shots, and she comes out the other side with a win. But I just think I'd rather have my money on the plus money side here because there is a path to victory here for Sam Hughes. And we just saw Ariane Carnelossi take it. And Ariane Carnelossi is not Tatiana Suarez. Let's not get it mixed up here. 5 of 7 on her takedown attempts, and she controlled Estela Nunez for almost 55% of the cage time and finished her. So there's a path here for Sam. So beware if you're on that Nunez side.
I like it, Weezy. I do think we absolutely have a live dog there in that spot. And even though I promised some poor soul on Twitter that I wasn't going to be betting Sam Hughes, y'all know how that goes. I might end up on Sam Hughes. By fight time, sad day for anybody that tailed the NHL degenerate action. Unfortunately, my Canadians didn't get it done today, son of a bitch. All right. Last fight we are going to talk about, the one that kicks off the evening on Saturday. Haile Alatang, or Alatang Haile, can't ever remember if it's backwards or forwards, taking on Kevin Kroom. We talked about Glory MMA a couple times here, and Kroom is one of their stable fighters. Word has it, he is dropping to 135 for this fight. He's already a super tall and long fighter, Weezy, and now he's going to have a ridiculous height and reach advantage here in this spot. But really, this is a fight to me between two very mid fighters. You know, Haile Alatang, 14, 8, and 2. Kevin Kroom 21-14. Like, their records say it all. They're just not high caliber guys. Kroom made his UFC debut, unfortunately got the win overturned because he popped for marijuana, which we all know is the most potent performance-enhancing drug on the planet. He's 34 years old, switching weight classes. I don't like it, Wheezy. When guys, they get past their prime and then they drop, that's a red flag to me. I just don't like when that happens. I'd rather see somebody quit cutting and move up a weight class, kind of like Rafael Dos Anjos did, than try and kill themselves getting down to a weight class below because they need the advantage. But his jiu-jitsu game is solid. In his last fight against Boom Kelleher, he really tried to ratchet up his activity. We saw him striking far more often, had more output. He's going to have a 7-inch reach advantage here in this spot, but damn, he's only got a 30% takedown defense. I know Boom did a lot of the damage there on that takedown defense percentage, but still, it's not great. Halatang Haili, he's taking fight ready, folks. He's been hanging out there with Henry Cejudo and the Korean Zombie for his last fight camp. Y'all know how I feel about that. And honestly, to me, Haile Alatang's always been a better wrestler than we've seen. He likes to go out there and bang, man. He's big, he's slow, he's plodding, he fires these big power shots looking for the KO, but he's got some wrestling in his back pocket that he just almost never uses. He averages 1.75 takedowns per 15 minutes with a 33% accuracy, which is pretty solid. And he's got a 72% takedown defense. I think Henry Cejudo is going to have this kid ready to wrestle. And honestly, I think it's probably a get-right spot for Alatang Haili. I mean, we need to see what Kroom looks like on the scales on Saturday before we can do anything drastic, obviously. But, man, I mean, again, Wheezy, it's a price tag that I hate. We got Alatang Haili minus 175. I don't want to trust the guy at that number, but I think he's the side here. What do you think?
I don't know what to make of this fight, man. This is a weird-ass fight, and Kevin Kroom is a weird-ass fighter. This guy's been back and forth between 135 and 145. We've seen him try to grapple a lot, but he can't get takedowns. But boy, oh boy, can he get taken down. And the guy looks huge. I mean, he was so much bigger than Brian Kelleher. I can't even believe that they sanctioned that fight. I had money on Kelleher, and I didn't watch the weigh-ins. And when that started, I was like, wait, what? When I saw the comparison of those two guys, and now this guy's going to cut back down to 135 again, I don't know, man. Haili he's a good wrestler, but he just doesn't win minutes there. He's got 7 takedowns, but he's got only 6 minutes of control time on those 7 takedowns. So it's not like he's winning a ton of minutes with the wrestling. And but he's done a good job of not letting other people win minutes with the wrestling. 72% takedown defense, only 3.5% control time allowed. So that would be every time he gets taken down, he gets control for less than a minute. So this is a guy who is probably not going to get taken down by Kevin Kroom, even if Kroom's the much bigger guy. But the problem with Alatang is he doesn't throw. He's all power in every strike, but he doesn't throw volume. He doesn't throw in combination. Kroom does throw with volume, does throw with combination, and he pressures. So I kind of actually like the plus money on Kroom here, but I mean, it's really hard to get behind him. He's got 41% striking defense. He's got 1 of 18 on his takedown attempts in 3 UFC fights, and he's getting taken down at will by his opponents. So, I just feel like Alatang might be able to win enough minutes in this fight if he fights smart and not really have to win big moments in order to get his hand raised here. But Kroom, it feels to me like he has some avenues here to win some minutes. And I think that if this fight stays standing for a long period of time, Kroom might win this fight and actually might cruise.
I mean, maybe, potentially.
7-inch reach advantage, big time volume advantage.
If he just jabs him to death.
Yeah, and look, Alatang throws 8.48 significant strike attempts per minute. His opponents throw 12.27. So that's a guy that's getting seriously out-volumed on the feet, right? Well, look at Kroom. He's throwing 7.5. His opponents are only throwing 5. So for every 2 strikes that his opponents throw, Kroom throws 3. And for every, say, 12 strikes that Alatang's opponents throw, Alatang throws 8. So, this is a situation where we're going to see Kroom throwing a ton more volume. He's going to be a lot busier on the feet, and he's going to be much taller, and he's going to have a reach advantage. So unless Alateng all of a sudden starts wrestling big time, now I think Kroom is live at this line.
Okay. Weezy, I like it. You know, I love me a live dog. I think the one thing I really got to see, though, is how Kroom looks on the scales.
Very important. I'm glad you brought that up. He's cutting down to 135. He's a huge 145er, so you really want to see him on the scale before you go deep and bet him here.
Exactly. He is a massive 145er. And honestly, like I said, I think if Alateng Haley comes out to wrestle, I think he wins relatively easily. This thing all comes down to game plan. Because if Kroom uses the jab and he stays on the outside and he's got energy and the cut is healthy for him, he's a very live dog in this spot. Absolutely. But if he doesn't do that, if he's tired from that weight cut, if he doesn't try to force the volume the way he did against Kelleher, and Alateng comes out and wants to shoot a takedown, this could be the most boring start to a UFC event in all time, and Alateng Haley might just sit on top of him for 15 minutes.
It could absolutely happen. It's just that Alateng's fights have taken place, and this isn't a 4-fight sample size in the UFC. They've taken place at striking range 84% of the time. So if this guy's going to come out here and wrestle fuck somebody, it'll be the first damn time we've seen it in the UFC. So, you know, if you're on that Alateng side, you're laying juice. Just keep in mind, he might wrestle, but he might not.
Yeah. For sure. And again, that's where, like I said, it all comes down to fight ready. I know I can trust them. I know I can trust the coaches. I can trust the game plan. Is Alateng Haley going to follow that game plan? That's the question. And I mean, if he's been a training partner for Zombie, maybe they are thinking striking, because obviously there was no grappling in that game whatsoever. So very, very sketchy position, man. Very difficult to trust. I mean, at the end of the day, I took a poke on Kevin Kroom against my guy Boom Kelleher because I thought his submission game was going to be good enough. Maybe we've seen Boom get caught a couple times, and it hurt my heart. But at the number, I couldn't help but just sprinkle a little bit. I had Kroom in a Hail Mary submission parlay, nothing crazy. But I took that shot in a way. Maybe that's the way to look here, because yeah, he could definitely win this thing. He's got some submission upside, and if Alateng Haley does take him to the mat, then it's in his world, and he's got some offense, man. If you couldn't tell, I have bounced from Haley getting the knockout to Haley getting the decision to Kroom getting the decision to Kroom getting the sub. Guys, this fight is sketchy as all hell.
It is,
like,
man. It really is.
No, thank you. This is first fight of the night. This is the one you can miss. I always yell at the people who leave the stands in the UFC empty. Man, when that crowd, people are just barely starting to trickle in, third fight of the night, I'm like, what is wrong with you? You paid $600 for tickets to watch people punch each other and bleed, and you're going to miss the first 3 fights? Like, yeah, maybe you can miss this one.
Yeah, a bunch of cake eaters and MMA media who don't even show up for a main card, you know. These are the kind of guys you see bitching out their dry cleaners because they wanted medium starch, not light starch in their shirts, you know. I mean, bunch of morons, man. That's why people like us, Clint, we're the ones that got to do the heavy lifting out here, man.
It's true. It's true, Weezy. And we're underappreciated. We need to get paid like the people bitching at their dry cleaners so that we can become the people bitching at their dry cleaners. No, I'm just kidding. Never going to be that guy. But Weezy, this was fun, man. This is a great card for entertainment value, not the best for betting value, in my opinion. Again, the only bet that I have locked in at this point is the body snatcher. Looking at a couple of other spots, if we want to recap, I kind of think Fialho's live. I like Gadzhi in the co-main event. We're both picking Vicente Luque, but I got the heebie-jeebies about that fight a little bit. I kind of like William Knight, but that's just my built-in bias of wanting to fade Devin Clark. We both think Pannie Kianzad rolls. Drakkar Klose should win, but we don't like the line. We disagreed on a couple of fights in the middle there. I kind of like Leave It. You kind of like Ogden. We both think Buday probably is the right side here in this spot. Maybe some finishing upside. Sam Hughes might be live. Kevin Kroom might be live. It's a dumpster fire, folks. We're going dumpster diving on Saturday, so be careful. Try to put your money in good spots. Weezy, I appreciate you coming in, clutch, filling in on short notice, man. Let the people know where they can find you, where they can get your content, and what you got going on.
Yeah, so you can always find me on my YouTube channel, which is just called Uncle Wheezy. I do balls deep breakdowns of fights there, and every Tuesday night at 10 o'clock Central Time, I do a full card breakdown called Just the Tip with Uncle Wheezy. We break down all the cards from a statistical and tape study angle, and then we finish with Uncle Wheezy's ass shaving of the week, which is my pick for the most dominant victory. I've been on a heater with the ass shaving picks lately. Even gave a plus money ass shaving last week as the old man Alexei Oleinik pulled guard and got it done, baby. And that's what you do when you got that fantastic Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Also, you can find me on the MMA Engine YouTube channel. Now, we're going to be doing a new show there. We just debuted it last weekend or last Thursday. It's called Probability. And what I've done is I've created this Excel spreadsheet that basically has all of the divisional finish rates year by year and overall, and it converts the betting lines into implied probabilities. And we take those two benchmarks, the implied probability of the betting lines and the divisional finish rates, and we compare them against the two fighters involved in the fight, and then do additions and subtractions and highlight when we have an edge over the books in green, highlight when the books have an edge over us in red. And it's a data-driven way to find value in these over-under lines and in these fight goes and fight doesn't go lines. We're very proud of this show. It's going to be on the MMA Engine YouTube channel. I believe it's 7 o'clock Eastern on Thursday. Make sure you check out that. Subscribe to Uncle Wheezy's channel. Subscribe to the MMA Engine channel. You can always find me right here on Pub Sports Radio. This week, it'll be 3 times. Stat Diggers Sunday, Die Hard MMA Podcast Monday, DFS show with Sparring with Reality Betting, DFS by the Numbers, and my man Monk on Wednesday. You could basically anywhere like some long-haired clown is talking about MMA on YouTube, dude, you're going to find your Uncle Wheezy there running his mouth. So thanks so much for having me on the show again, Clint. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you, everybody that spent your Monday evening with us. And let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC Vegas 51.
Let's do it, Wheezy. And hey, real quick, the chat is asking for real quick, rapid fire Bellator picks. We got a doubleheader coming up. McKee versus Pitbull 2, Nemkov versus Anderson. I have done no tape study or preparation for these fights so far, but I'll be more than happy to give you a riff right off the top. I think McKee is legit. I know Pitbull is an absolute beast. I would kind of side with McKee personally, but Pitbull is not the kind of fighter that I want to stand in front of, so he could come out and make this thing interesting. I've never been a believer in Corey Anderson. I still think he's chinning. I don't care that he's gone over to Bellator and had a good run. I think Nemkov is the truth, and I think Nemkov's going to knock him out. Anything for you, Wheezy?
Yeah, same thing. I'm a big believer in Nemkov, but I'm a big Corey Anderson fan too. So, like, I think Nemkov wins that fight, but I mean, I'm not gonna stand in the way of Corey Anderson on that one. And then, yeah, AJ McKee and Pitbull are at 2 different places in their career right now. And more times than not, the younger, hungrier fighter with their whole career ahead of them finds a way to make it happen. And that dude has got the skill set to make it happen. So I would lean McKee in that main event.
Okay. All right. Glad we agree on those 2 at least. There you guys go. Everybody asking for the Bellator content. Thank you all so much. Again, do me a favor, smash that like button, share the show out there. Keep us bringing this free content to you guys. The support that you guys give us really makes all the difference in the world. If you enjoy the shows, if you enjoy the free content, you got to support us. If it's not for you guys, we wouldn't be here. Hopefully we can get hot, folks. Finally got the monkey off my back. Got a good, solid winning week. Cut the losses in half on the official record. Let's keep that momentum going forward. Everybody get out there. Have a great week. Kick some ass this week, guys. Seriously. Go out and take it. Have a good one. Let's roll.